Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call this council meeting to order. Councillor Beatty and Councillor Henderson provide their regrets. Please remain standing if you're able for the land acknowledgement, a moment of silent reflection, and the singing of O Canada. And you'll have to excuse my voice. I'm just on the tail end of a cold. So we acknowledge that Stratford is positioned on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral and Wanderers peoples. As we gather, we are reminded that the city of Stratford is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. We acknowledge that Stratford is situated on land that was shared between the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral and the Wanderers peoples. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play on this land. Before we pause for a moment of silent reflection, let's keep in our hearts and minds the passing of Diane Sims, her family, her husband, Dennis. In a letter that I wrote in 2024, May of 2024, to the Order of Canada Committee, I shared, Ms. Sims is an amazing human being. Her entire life has been that of service to others. Through her career in journalism broadcasting, she has shed light on many issues impacting the lives of many in our society, being a voice for those that perhaps would not have a loud enough voice. As the mayor of Stratford, I've been blessed to get to know Ms. Sims through her advocacy work in our municipality. Simply put, I cannot think of an individual more deserving of an appointment to the Order of Canada. Diane passed away at 1:17 on May the 8th. She said goodbye to the Accessibility Advisory Committee earlier in the week. I can say that for all, we have our challenges in our lives. For some, these challenges define or limit us. For others, these challenges inspire them. Diane inspired us. So let's pause and reflect. Thank you. A little ahead of those children. Please be seated. Please allow me to share the respective Stratford statement. Coalition of the City of Stratford is committed to providing quality service to all members of the public, council, and our employees. Our goal is to promote a safe, healthy, respectful, inclusive, and positive environment. We have a responsibility to treat people with respect by creating safe and respectful spaces. It is the city's expectation that all present will be respectful. The meeting is yours.
Through you, your worship. Item 2 is declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations? And if so, please state the general nature thereof.
Councilor Hunter, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the mayor, item 7.5, the property in question is a property that I've looked at investing in.
Thank you. Any other? Seeing none, next item.
Item 3 is adoption of the minutes, and there is a motion that the minutes of the special meeting of council dated April 20th and the regular meeting dated April 27th be adopted as printed.
Moved by Councilor Dean, seconded by Councilor Knight. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Most of any, that's unanimous and carried.
Item 4 is adoption of the addenda, and prior to today's regular council meeting, an addenda was circulated to add delegations and correspondence. And there is a motion that the addenda to the regular agenda of council and standing committees dated May 11th be added to the agenda as printed.
Moved by Councilor McCabe, seconded by Councilor Burback. Any discussion? I'm noted, all in favor? Most of any, that's unanimous and carried.
Item 5 is the report of the committee of the whole in-camera session. Item 5.1, just prior to today's regular council meeting, an in-camera session was held to consider the following items. 4.1, confidential report of the Chief Technology and Security Officer with respect to security of municipal property, CM-26-14, and that was considered under the following exemptions of the Municipal Act: security of municipal property of the municipality, and a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. And at the in-camera session, the confidential report was received.
Thank you.
Moving to item 6, hearings of deputations and presentations. Item 6.1 is a presentation of the Green Recognition Awards.
Welcome, Mr. Smith.
Well, good evening. I'm pleased to be here to highlight the city's Green Recognition Program, championed by the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee, and celebrate sustainability efforts in our community. As a refresher, this program promotes sustainable practices and recognizes the contributions of residents, businesses, and organizations towards our carbon reduction goals, supporting the city's targets of 30% emission reduction by 2030 and net zero by. This marks the 3rd year of the program with 4 categories focused on waste reduction, energy and electrification, green buildings, and tourism. We received a strong response from both residents and businesses eager to share their successes, and tonight we are pleased to recognize some of these efforts in person with the hope that they inspire others to advance sustainability across Stratford. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mayor Ritzma to present the certificates of appreciation. Beginning with the green building category, I would first like to highlight and invite up to the podium Lowe's Properties, who recently completed a significant renovation of their downtown building, creating 10 residential units and 1 commercial unit on the upper 2 floors of their space that had been vacant since 1951. The project used local contractors to install high efficiency Mitsubishi heat pumps, upgraded windows with energy efficient, historical appropriate models, and fully insulated the upper floors to reduce wind loss.
So as they make their way, if you're a successful certificate winner, please make your way out those doors and round to the side. So wonderful. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, next in the green building category, I would like to highlight Huron-Perth Healthcare Alliance Stratford General Hospital. In 2024, they identified and began implementing 86 targeted energy efficiency measures to significantly reduce natural gas and electricity use at Stratford General Hospital. Working with Enbridge and Walter Beatty, upgrades were made to boilers, heat recovery systems, air handling units, and building automation controls. Together, these improvements are expected to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by approximately 1,060 tons annually, while delivering substantial long-term energy savings. Alright, so the second category tonight is waste reduction and diversion, in which I would like to highlight Aishin Canada. Aishin participates in Stratford's Green Bin program to collect compostable materials from lunchrooms and offices, supplementing their on-site composting to ensure reliable year-round diversion that their dedicated facility staff sort and weigh daily. Over a 10-month reporting period, the compost diversion program diverted an average of 638 pounds of organic waste per month, which at the current rate represents approximately 7,650 pounds annually, preventing an estimated 1.15 metric tons of CO2 emissions. Next company I'd like to highlight for this category is Pazzo. Pazzo Pizzeria and Cafe Buffon are committed to reducing their environmental impact through active waste diversion, including participation in the city of Stratford's municipal composting program, diverting up to 600 kilograms of organic waste from landfill each week. To reduce single-use packaging and beverage waste, the restaurants installed an in-house water filtration bottling system, eliminating commercially bottled water and diverting approximately 700 liters of glass annually from the recycling stream. Lastly, both restaurants have transitioned to a more sustainable takeout solutions using friendlier reusable container systems and ensuring that all other takeout packaging is recyclable or compost. And the final company I'd like to highlight is FIO Automotive, receiving recognition in two categories: energy management and electrification, and waste reduction and diversion. In terms of energy management, FIO implemented a robust electrification and efficiency strategy to support its own goals of reducing carbon emissions 50% below 2019 levels by 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Key initiatives included replacing propane-powered lift trucks to electric, installing air source and waste heat recovery heat pump HVAC systems, installing lighting to LEDs, and deploying and advancing building automation and energy monitoring systems. From waste reduction, their facility had achieved zero waste to landfill in 2018 through comprehensive recycling, reuse, reduction, and composting programs. In 2025 alone, they diverted over 17,000 tons of non-hazardous material from landfill. Beyond product processes, employees are supported through on-site recycling programs for clothing, prescription glasses, milk bags, batteries, e-waste, and all of which help embed sustainability into everyday operations. As a final note to conclude, I want to thank all applicants for their time and sustainability efforts. Climate action is a community-wide effort that needs all of us to contribute. So thank you for your contributions, and we look forward to more applications next year.
Thank you. Thank you to Ms. Loosemore for carrying on the work of climate change program manager. I can say at a recent climate momentum event, the city of Stratford received a B+ for its work on greenhouse gas emission reduction. So thank you for your continued work. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Your worship, item 6.2 is a presentation of the Social Research and Planning Council's Our Stories of the Housing Crisis Report. And there is a motion that Will Wellington, manager of Social Research and Planning here on United Way, be heard, and that the report titled Our Stories of the Housing Crisis be received for information.
Thank you. Moving for that, Councilor McCabe will move, second by Councilor Bristol. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous and carried. Just a reminder, welcome, Will. Just a reminder, as you make your presentations, speak clearly towards the owl, so that we can pick you up at home as well. So the floor is yours whenever you're ready. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do I use this?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight. So my name is Will Wellington. I'm a manager with the Social Research and Planning Council, which is part of the United Way of Perth Huron. And I'm excited to be here today to share our new report, our stories of the housing crisis, findings from the cost of housing survey. So about the survey, it was conducted from January to April 2024. And our cost of housing survey heard from 716 Perth Huron residents, all of whom had been affected by rising housing costs. We heard from all municipalities in the region, and 70% of respondents were employed full-time, 74% were parents, and they were employed full-time across all major regional industries. Respondents generally reported lower incomes than the overall population, but all income groups were represented, including higher income groups. And the income categories we used in the survey suggest that almost half of respondents could not have afforded, as we consider afforded 30% of their income, a market rate one-bedroom unit at the time, and over 3/4 of respondents would have been unlikely to qualify for a single-family home at the time. We asked respondents how they've been affected, how they've adapted, and what they wanted to share with their leaders. And the open-ended questions we asked let them share what they thought was important in their own words. So our report is structured around major themes that we observed across those responses. And so first we'll look at themes around housing itself, then how those housing costs rippled throughout people's lives, and finally how those respondents made sense of the crisis and want to move forward. So both homeowners and renters have been hurt by high housing costs. Costs have risen dramatically in both the property market and the rental market, and both homeowners and renters have been affected. So we heard from 30% of respondents that they had been affected by increasing or unaffordable mortgage payments, primarily through hiked rates on existing mortgages. And as in this quote from Stratford, our mortgage rate will increase $1,000 a month. How do I just magically come up with a spare $1,000 each month? Dramatic increases like this can easily stretch a household budget to the breaking point. And meanwhile, 21% of respondents commented on the unaffordability of the rental market. That was the biggest rent-related theme. Some respondents reported spending large parts of their income on rent. Some were facing unmanageable rent increases. In many cases, the renters in our sample concluded that while their current unit might be unaffordable, all other units on the market would be worse, with the rise in market rents being so extreme that moving could lead to a leap in rent and a drop in unit quality at once. People get stuck or displaced as housing costs rise. So with available housing so unaffordable, 37% of respondents described their mobility being reduced in some way. Many were not only stuck, but stuck in housing that was inappropriate for them, too small or in poor condition or both. And on the other hand, 16% reported having to move when they didn't want to move. 14% were sharing housing to save money, and that often meant adult children living with parents. And while some respondents expressed thankfulness for this option, generally cohabitation was described as a regrettable last resort and a sign of how bad things are. So we can hear the frustration these situations cause in this quote from Stratford. The plans we made years ago, when the kids moved out, have gone into the trash. People cut both extras and essentials to afford housing. This was the #1 way that respondents coped with increasing housing costs in our survey, by spending less. So the vast majority of our sample were spending less on something. 65% of respondents reported cutting back on general spending, on extras, and on recreation. And many respondents described this amounting to, these harsh and widespread cuts amounting to almost a total loss of social life. So these are significant sacrifices in themselves, but beyond that, 58% reported cutting back on essential categories, as in this quote from Stratford: "I've gone to bed cold many nights and sat in the dark to save on electricity." Almost half reported spending less on food and groceries, and some respondents made comments indicating various levels of food insecurity, from cutting out types of food, to eating less healthily, to skipping meals and going hungry. To afford housing, people work more, but many fall behind. So 21% of respondents were also trying to earn more, primarily by working more, and we heard about additional jobs, we heard about overtime, sometimes even delaying retirement, as in this Stratford quote: "Thank the gods we're working full time. If either one of us gets sick and cannot work, we're screwed. I'm in my 60s and I don't even dream of retiring." Working more leaves less time for family and personal well-being, and many respondents reported reaching their limits. Respondents also reported that whatever changes they made, for a lot of them, it wasn't enough to maintain their finances. 34% reported an unstable or declining financial position, so they were saving less, living paycheck to paycheck, and taking on debt. High housing costs affect mental health and children. So for at least 25% of respondents, high housing costs worsen their mental health, causing stress, fear, frustration, sadness, and hopelessness. And 27% of respondents with children commented on ways their children were affected, as in this quote from Stratford: "My teenage son suffers the most. I don't have enough money for a bigger place, and my son's in a very tiny room." These children lost out on enriching activities, and they had less personal space in smaller units. And in some comments, parents also described an additional stress, the stress of giving their disappointed children less than they wish they could. People see leaders as responsible for an unfair crisis. So many respondents made comments that suggested various explanations for the housing crisis, and similar numbers point the finger at the public sector and the private sector. These respondents saw this crisis as enabled by both neglectful public officials and selfish business people. 34% of respondents highlighted the many ways in which current housing costs seem unfair. So they noted that they work hard at good jobs, making good money, sometimes more than full time, sometimes with significant education, and yet are struggling to afford quote-unquote ridiculous market rates for even undesirable units. And some respondents, like the Stratford resident, commented that access to housing was starting to seem like a matter of luck. People can't afford to buy houses and end up trapped in terrible apartments because everywhere else is too expensive. Our only hope is to win the lottery. Respondents want action and affordable housing. This is one of the biggest themes that respondents were eager for this crisis to end, with 61% commenting on the need for change and possible solutions. They emphasized the urgency and unsustainability of the situation and the consequences of inaction. And some said bluntly that more must be done, like this respondent from Stratford: "There cannot be any decision makers thinking, oh well, people will have to adapt. Please use your power, support the people you are paid to represent. This is why your job exists." 46% of respondents called for various measures to make housing more affordable. The biggest themes there: 26% called for more housing, with many stressing the need for affordable housing in particular. And while respondents expressed a lack of faith in decision makers, they also expressed a yearning for change and for leaders who deliver it. So that brings us to our recommendation to build the new community housing that Perth Huron needs. The support for affordable housing expressed by these survey respondents reinforces a growing consensus in our community that our community housing stock, nonprofit housing, public housing, co-op housing, should be expanded. So we call on individuals, organizations, and especially governments to set ambitious targets for new community housing and make serious investments to achieve them. And this Stratford responded, well, everyone needs housing. We have to do more to provide housing for people who are trying their best but can't afford that. So thank you for listening to the presentation. It's an honor to represent the stories of Perth Huron respondents with this report. And we were very gratified to hear from some respondents who valued this opportunity to share their experience. We thank you for the opportunity to share their stories today. And this is my information if you want to follow up for any further details and so forth. And if you're interested in hearing more from us, we have a research blog, United Insights, that you can subscribe to.
Questions or comments from council at this time from Mr. Malone? Council Burback, go ahead, please.
Thank you through the chair. Thanks for your presentation. Very insightful. Just a question about you mentioned quickly your definition for affordable housing. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so well, when we use the term, like when we say that people supported affordable housing in the responses, I'm using that pretty flexibly. That, it means, it can range from rent geared to income housing to like condos are more affordable than single detached homes, for example. So I bundle things together when I use the term there. But when we use data to like measure affordability, we use a specific standard of 30% of someone's total household income or less should go towards their housing for it to be considered affordable. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilor Wardell.
So sure, thank you for the good presentation. I know we have done about the strong trees in but do you have any project as a small in the landing? And you have any project as a small?
Yes, so I'm from United Way. We have started a nonprofit housing corporation called United Housing that is operating right now. We're working on projects across the region. A lot of them, well, most of them at this point in pre-development. So we're working on possibilities and opportunities. We have started construction. We've had our first project enter the construction phase in Listowel. It's a 10-unit project above a downtown location. So that's very exciting. We had a successful fundraising campaign for that over the past year, and it's in construction now. And we are excited to be moving forward on some projects in Stratford, the most advanced of which is for the former Molly Bloom's property, which we were able to acquire some months ago. And we will be, we're in pre-development for that, so working on drawings and starting to fundraise more for that in the future. And I believe we will be coming back to you folks to give you more information on that and hoping to for partnership and support.
Also,
Continue. Are you building this one for homelessness or are you just for family? What exactly your project?
Yes, all of our projects have to have a little bit of a different focus depending on the partners that we can bring together around the project. In general, the United Housing projects are mixed income. That's the goal. So we want to have a combination of deeply affordable units that will be helping people who are on the by name list. So yes, solving homelessness, but also mixed with say working households that need attainable housing, as well as market rate units as well, which create the mixed income model to integrate people while also helping the finances of the projects.
Let's continue. This I'm not clear. But when you say mix, right?
Mixed income, yes.
Yeah, for homeless people, do you have any project at this moment?
All of our projects have a mixed income model where we are serving, yes, people who are coming off the by name list who are homeless right now. So that's a part of every project, but it's not the full picture of every project. So yes, it addresses it. Every project will address a piece of that. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. I recognize Ronnie Nerd from United Way, Birch Huron in the audience as well. Thank you for your work. Appreciate it. Next item.
Item 6.3 is a request for delegation by ShelterLink. And there is a motion that ShelterLink representatives, Kate Trudeau, Executive Director, and Board Member Cambria Ravenhill be heard.
Moved by Councilor Burbank, seconded by Councilor Hunter. All in favor? Most only that's unanimous, is very welcome, Ms. Trudeau of this. Floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kate Trudeau, and I'm the Executive Director at ShelterLink Youth Services. This is Cambria Ravenhill, ShelterLink member. We are here to provide a brief overview of ShelterLink's role in the community, critical work we do supporting youth experiencing homelessness, and the growing financial pressures facing the organization. We are asking the council to support both immediate and medium-term action, first to help with short-term stabilization measures ahead of the upcoming winter season, and second, to direct a review of the current funding model so it is better reflects evidence-based operational costs and aligns with comparable municipalities. ShelterLink has been providing an essential response to youth homelessness in Stratford and Perth County for the past 35 years. Over that time, our role has evolved alongside emerging best practices in youth homelessness prevention. Today, ShelterLink's work extends well beyond emergency shelter. We help youth avoid entering shelter through prevention and diversion, support faster transitions into stable housing, and provide follow-up supports to help youth remain housed and connected to their community. This approach matters because youth require a specialized response, one that recognizes their stage of development, their heightened vulnerability, and the importance of early intervention before homelessness becomes prolonged and entrenched. Canadian research shows that 46% of chronically homeless adults first experience homelessness before the age of 25. This highlights the long-term consequences when youth homelessness is not prevented or resolved quickly. The longer a young person remains homeless, the greater the risks of school disruption, exploitation, and lasting negative outcomes. We are also seeing important shifts locally. The youth accessing ShelterLink are getting younger, and approximately half are now female, which represents a significant shift in the population we're serving. Over the 2025-26 fiscal year, ShelterLink supported 33 youth in the community to avoid entering shelter and diverted an additional third of youth to safe alternative housing. Approximately 2/3 of the youth supported in the community were under the age of 18. ShelterLink continued to provide a safe place to stay for 36 youth in shelter, with nearly 1/3 under the age of 18. Approximately 2/3 were from Stratford and 1/3 from Perth County. ShelterLink's housing-focused approach is also helping with faster transitions to stability, with the average length of stay decreasing from 195 days in 2023-24 to 43 days in 25-26. Beyond shelter, ongoing support also remained key. ShelterLink provided follow-up supports for an average of 5 months to 14 youth to help them maintain housing stability. Only one of those youth later returned to shelter. Behind these numbers are young people whose lives are changing. As one youth shared, ShelterLink services helped me prove to myself that I was capable, intelligent, and worth investing in myself and my future. Ultimately, this work is about more than emergency shelter. It's about helping youth move from crisis to stability, from isolation to connection, and from uncertainty to hope. I didn't do any of that.
There you go. All great stuff. All right. So Kay got to talk about all of the wonderful things that ShelterLink does, and I get to talk about all of our challenges. Because I'm on the board and that's what we do. So ShelterLink has had financial challenges over its 35-year existence, but we have some very specific challenges that came to light this past winter. And we are looking to fill a rather urgent need for stabilization measures as we go into this winter. The past winter, there were changes in local services, which increased competition for frontline staff. And specifically, the introduction of the warming center, while it was an incredibly needed initiative, had a significant and very unintended impact on ShelterLink's staffing capabilities and capacity. In short, ShelterLink lost 4 staffers in about 1 week in early December. And that's 4 out of 12 total staff. So a third went, and they were most of our night staff and all of our weekend staff. This created obviously a huge operational challenge. It was very hard on the remaining staffers who had to fill in, and it came close to forcing a temporary closure of the shelter. The situation arose because the warming center was able to offer $5 more per hour to the staff, and we could not compete with that with our funding. As you just heard from the United Way, $5 an hour is a lot of money to somebody who is struggling, and it's a couple $1,000s in somebody's pocket, and it can make a big difference in their life. And we cannot stop someone for trying to improve their financial situation. So, in order to avoid this situation in the future and to support stable winter operations and keep our shelter open, ShelterLink is proposing a modest increase in wages, moving some of our folks from part-time to full-time, which is better for them, and also covering the associated benefit costs. That's our short term. Now, that current funding, that immediate issue, sits within a much broader structural funding challenge. Our core operations rely significantly on fundraising, grants, and one-time donations. It's a shifting grant and donation landscape that requires, a lot of work. It's not very stable, and it's a potential ongoing financial challenge. To help offset our ongoing pressures this coming year in our budget, we've already have $65,000 more in donations that are required to keep going. And also, we need to keep these stabilization figures in mind for our staff. So at the short-term stabilization and also covering this gap is $142,100. At the same time, our municipal funding is tied to per diem payments for occupied beds in the shelter. And this has also created an ongoing problem because as ShelterLink is successful in the services it offers, we are reducing occupancy and therefore financial remuneration. When ShelterLink was created 35 years ago, it was a shelter. It was just emergency beds. But now, as Kate indicated, it's an entirely programmatic approach to youth homelessness that offers upfront prevention and then post-shelter support, the whole continuity. And so hopefully we can offer these services that help our youth having temporary homelessness and not having full-time homelessness moving forward, that we help them move into successful adulthood. So, as Kate said, our programs include best practice for youth homelessness, and this is a very strong focus on prevention, where possible, diversion where it is safe and appropriate, shorter stays in the shelter, and faster transitions into stable housing, and also support for our youth when they're in that housing to make sure they're successful. These are very positive outcomes for both youth or the broader community, but they create less time in the shelter. And the impact is that last year, the per diem revenue was over $26,000 lower than the previous year. And this is a trend we think will continue. So our challenge is that our staffing and facility or operations costs do not fall based on how many youth and how many days they're in the shelter. And it means that when the organization does better work, better results, we still end up in a weaker financial situation. So, ShelterLink is an essential part of this community's homeless response. We are part of the homelessness strategy. And for over 3 decades, we have supported one of our community's most vulnerable groups. However, this current funding doesn't align with best practices now. And we've actually compared our funding with other youth shelters in communities around us. We checked in with Wellington Guelph, London, Middlesex, and Niagara, and we found these municipalities fund 60 to 100% of their shelters in comparison to funding that we get that's approximately 21%. So recognizing that models and ownership and arrangements and costs do differ, this does suggest that a review of the ShelterLink funding model is warranted. So our request today is that council not solve the full structural issue. It's a big question. It's going to require work. We are asking council to help stabilize operations in the short term for this coming winter, and to support a more informed review of the funding model in the medium term, so that it better reflects actual costs and best practice service delivery. It's odd to celebrate 35 years of a shelter. It sounds like having to have a shelter in place for youth over that time frame might be negative, but it isn't a negative. We support people who need the support at the time, and as Kate mentioned, it is a younger group than ever before. It is 50-50 male and female, and they require a lot of specialized support, but it works for them. And we have graduates, I'm sure, for all of those decades who are out there living successful lives because of what ShelterLink has done. So we are asking this council to please support our short-term stabilization funding, which is put forth in the management report and the subsequent resolution that's coming up. And please, in addition, to direct staff to work with ShelterLink and report back with recommendations for aligning funding model with evidence-based operating costs and best practices across comparative municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from Ms. Trudeau, Ms. Reagan, or Councilor McNady?
To the chair, thank you very much for this presentation. Shelter Link is obviously a very important part of the community, and it's, you know, supporting youth who are vulnerable and more young women than men now. It's a very important thing for us to be considering. Obviously, we've made a decision regarding warming center that has ultimately other implications for the whole housing continuum. And I thank you for presenting this to us now so that we can make some decisions to help support.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Councilor Burbank, go ahead, please.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you for the work you do. It's really important. My question is around the funding model, the per diem funding model. Is that a provincially based system? How does that?
I think that recently came into effect for us, is there's provincial funding that is built for it. Different municipalities have different models. Best practice would indicate that base funding is maybe more appropriate. But at this point, yeah.
Yeah, and I just have a follow-up question as well. So you mentioned that about a third of the youth getting service from you are Perth County. So I'm curious if you're approaching Perth County as well for help with funding. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Savick, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I was just wondering, the staff recommendation that's on the agenda further down, just compared to the request that you're looking for, would you say that adequately addresses what you're requesting as part of your presentation, like the stabilization and things like that, or?
In the management report, it's post stabilization funding. So it is part of the management report, part of the warming center report, and includes us as well. It's coming up.
Yeah, and so it's just follow up, so that would adequately meet the request that you're looking for, I guess.
It meets the short-term winter, but obviously we need to look at something a bit more stable, right?
Any other comments? Councilor Wardolfo.
Thank you for the presentation and the solution. My question for you, do you have any fund, government fund, top line or can we, the city council can support you? Or what exactly you can do? I know you are non-profit organization, maybe feel like corporation fundraising. That's very good, but you do a good job for the community. And then who is from our community, who is the main sponsor? Because the community helping, you know, most of the time you support them. Because what exactly at this moment you are looking for city council?
Yeah, I think what we're finding is that because our stable, secured government funding is lower, that our stability is we don't have stability from year to year. We're reliant on fundraising. We are reliant on one-time grants, which can kind of come and go. We do have, for example, a full-time outreach worker now that is doing a lot of prevention and a lot of the work in schools. And that was a 2-year grant that when we went to apply to continue it was denied. I think grants tend to support newer programs, but the continuation of programs are a little harder to secure. So we did not get that funding. So moving forward, we're looking at not having the ability to have a full-time outreach worker, or again, we continue to look for other grants, or to look for fundraising, like you said, corporate donations, those sort of things. But when 80% of our funding is, and not 80, because we do have United Way funding, we do have NCCSS funding, but again, they're very minimal, which we are reliant on mostly donations, mostly fundraising, mostly money that we need to raise. So from year to year, again, our operating is not stable, and that's what we're looking for, is some stable government funding so that we can operate from year to year and be able to program have staff have those programs that can last. Year over year.
Yes, the coordination. So we share the team. Do you have any legal service mistake in the motor? You remember when we use the ministry of children, so that's what they have any film for everyone.
So through the mayor, there are multiple sources and multiple ministries we use for this funding. And when we talk, it's one of the things that I must be clear is the premium part of that. It's really the sheltered portion of individuals on their Ontario works caseload is part of that, how we evaluate. So that's with the NCSS funding and with that homelessness prevention money and with that municipal grants that all go into the funding of shelter.
Other comments or questions? I'll close by saying that of the 35 years of Shelter Lake's existence, I was on the board for 23 years. As board member, as president at one time and acting ED as another. So I remember in 2008 sending a letter to then CAO requesting additional funding for staffing as well to keep the doors open. It is a challenge when we're not aspiring to the the cost of living for individuals that are working there. So I see many of the board members here tonight. You do great work, and I congratulate you on that. And having said that, we will pick this up a little later on this evening in our agenda. So thank you very much. Yes, I don't.
Through your worship, item 7 is orders of the day, and item 7.1 is a resolution regarding the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund and the Canadian Alliance and Homelessness Update. And there is a staff recommendation that the report be received for information. That the mayor and clerk of their respective delegates be authorized to enter into an amending agreement with the Canadian Alliance and Homelessness to rejoin the Built from Zero Canada movement. And that the director of social services be authorized to sign any further amendments to the agreement.
Mover for that, Councilor Cable, move second by Councilor Lunch. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Both day, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Item 7.2 is a resolution regarding the Warming Center Shelter Link Youth Services and Supportive Housing Solutions Update. And there is a recommendation that the report be received for information, that staff be directed to negotiate an agreement with the Canadian Mental Health Association here on Perth, operate a warming center from November 1st, 2026 to April 30th, 2027, with the maximum municipal contribution as noted, subject to final reporting and reconciliation for the noted budget period, and review of the submitted 2026-27 budget to be funded for municipal shared services partners. That the mayor and clerks or their respective delegates be authorized to sign the agreement for the operation of a warming center. That Shelter Link Youth Services be approved for additional operational support funding for the amount noted to be funded from municipal shared service partners. And then that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign an agreement with Shelter Link Youth Services for the provision of additional operational support funding.
Thank you.
And through your worship, I would just note on your addendum, we did receive a delegation request. So there would be first a motion that Amber Timmons be heard.
Mover for that, Councilor Burback will move, second by Councilor Niger, that Amber Timmons be heard. All in favor? Opposed, nay. I'll call that question again. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed, nay, and that's carried. And Ms. Timmons, please come forward.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Amber Timmons, and I'm a board member of Multicultural Association as a coordinator. I've been with the Multicultural Association for about 6 months, and during my time here, I have come to realize we help more than just the immigrants and refugees that are new and coming to Canada. We also very much have a local community focus on specifically helping our Stratford homeless population and other marginalized Stratfordians. It has come to our attention at the Multicultural Association that the warming center's operating hours are only used part of the year from November 1st to April 30th. It is in my understanding that the cost of operating during these months costs an annual amount of $327,302, subject to final reporting and reconciliation. It is also in my understanding that this amount is funded from municipal shared service partners. And is it possible for council to share a breakdown of this budget and for us to see what are the items being paid for and how frequently? Is there any possibility to find ways of spending more wisely and find ways of stretching this budget to conform to a full 365 days so that the warming center can stay active and open all year? Also, we're just wondering what would be necessary or required for the warming center to be open for a year, and how can the community best support the current strategy, and how can we support a secondary strategy that would allow a longer operating service of the warming center? So far, since the warming center closed, the Multicultural Association has been handing out food, tents, and blankets and sleeping bags. Because one of our only concerns is that with the warming center only operating from November 1st to April 30th, is that those utilizing the warming center will now be forced to sleep and congregate outside, which in many instances, police and other community members may tell these people to vacate their spots, which they choose to sleep at. And we are actually really happy that ShelterLink is looking for more funding, because this may be the only current resource for most of these affected homeless people. And because many are not eligible, they at ShelterLink as well because of the funding. So what happens to them if they're not qualified to book ShelterLink and there's no warming center? I think that the extra money for ShelterLink will help this issue if the city can open their hearts to these humans, because we are all humans helping humans.
These are comments. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Going back to the agenda, are there questions for in regards to the staff recommendation or to the mover and seconder to vote aside? Councilor McGee.
Through the chair, I was wondering if there would be an interest in deferring the decision on the warming center until we get some more information about, since it has just closed operations for the season, whether we can see how that time to evaluate how the whole span of that work, and also have time to look at the neighborhood effects and other things before we make a further decision.
Thank you. A seconder for that deferment. Councilor Burback.
The chair, may I make a recommendation? Just because there are 4 recommendations, could we please take them separately?
I think the councilor did identify that he wished to take the item with regards to the dollars associated with the warming center. I believe maybe you can maybe more.
Yes,
specify
I'd
that.
like to take the from the second paragraph to defer that to a later date and move forward with the ShelterLink support at this time.
Further clarification, is that, are you talking about the second and third paragraph?
Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
second and third paragraph,
Okay.
and possibly refer it back to staff so that they can present some more information about that.
I will second.
Thank you. Councilor Hunter.
Through the mayor, I wonder if we could just add an amendment to have this brought back by the July 13th council meeting. Then we put a date on it and.
Thank you. To the mover and seconder, okay. Councilor Burback.
Thank you, through the
Just a
chair.
reminder, this is a deferral motion, so let's be cautious about the conversation.
Okay, So there can't be too much conversation. I do know that the Canadian Mental Health Association is creating their own report, so that at that time it would be good if we could have access to that.
So I'm gonna turn to the clerk. Are you familiar and understand the motion that we have for or did you?
Through your worship, so it's my understanding that the second clause and the third clause, the discussion around the Canadian Mental Health Association Operational Warming Center is being deferred to the July 13th meeting.
Thank you. Yes, Director Berger, you have that?
No, that's good.
Any further discussion on that deferral? CEO, right?
Through the mayor, all I'd ask council is to provide staff with any comments or information that you are looking for, as for us, the questions that you need answered for that level. And those can be strictly with staff.
And Council Bean, go ahead. Once
I,
again, we're in it for a motion, okay?
this is the answering that question. The mayor, I guess one thing that I would like to know is if there's any funds that were left over from the last season that could afford that the amount would be less, or any other funding options.
If I, yeah, that can go back to staff. And once again, those comments, those questions can be spoken in word and or sent to the staff involved. Seeing none, I'm gonna call a question on the deferral. All in favor? Opposed to any, that's unanimous and carried. And we do have other items in the motion that are remaining. Discussion, Council Burbank.
I'll move the receiving the report and the shelter link services operational support funding.
Thank you. Seconder, Councilor Satin will second. Discussion. Councilor Bean and then Councilor Huntington.
Thank you for the mayor. So am I understanding correctly that Shelter Link is a shared service? So this would be, is that total amount, would that all be Stratford or would that be split amongst?
Turn to the director with regards to the shared service question, and then perhaps we can.
Through the mayor, we do have grant portions that are 100% Stratford based. The per diem is through NCCSS funding, and the operational funding is shared services. So I think it would look like at this point for 2,100 would come through operational funding.
So just for clarification, this does come up under shared services conversation.
It can't go to shared service.
It can.
That's how.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, through the mayor. I'm really supportive of this. I think our approach to helping people who need assistance in our community has been to look at that fulsome support that helps people get back on their feet. And I think this fits nicely with that. And what I would like to see is the entirety of our service delivery be looked at as a whole, so that we are maximizing the number of people we can help.
And so your point is well taken. We're addressing both serving youth and serving the people that serve them with a living wage or moving towards that. Other comments or questions, Councilor Burbank?
Thank you, through the chair. Totally agree with the council members' comments. And just for clarification, I'm gonna refer back to the report. It says that the city of Stratford would be providing 57,050 of that total amount there, and the rest would come from other sources.
There's nothing further. I will call the question. The motion on the floor, all in favor? Opposed to any? That's unanimous. Thank you. Really, you're a soft applause. Next item, please.
For your worship, item 7.3 is a resolution regarding the housing strategy alignment summary report. As noted, staff is here to present the report.
Take a little moment, looks like we have some little bit of things in this.
Thank you, Worship. I'm pleased to be here today on behalf and with our housing team, housing sprint team, which is an internal team that was put together at the beginning of the year that comes from departments across the corporation. And I think we've heard here tonight the complexity of housing as an issue in our community and beyond. And what we've taken in the last year is an approach where we're bringing subject matter experts from across our corporation, bringing them together to think together to use different lenses to apply to the issue of housing. As we know, housing does not sit neatly in one service area. It affects people, land use, finance, community well-being. And this sprint really gave us a chance to integrate some of those views and look at this in a more holistic kind of way. So the team that was put together, we've got folks from social services, planning, finance, corporate services, CAO's office, as well as our colleague Kendra Fry from West Stratford. The purpose of the work that we've done together in the last year is to kind of put together a clear shared picture of the city's role in housing, really looking at what the city is currently doing along with not everybody in the community, but some of the real big interventions that the city is currently undertaking and some of those partners. We want to know what we're currently doing, what we're currently investing in interventions, and where we're seeing gaps and pressures. And I want to say we've heard some great things tonight already. We heard from Will Wellington about those results from 2024, and I think you'll hear obviously some of the same themes in the work that we've done more recently in 2026. And really also the comments from Shelter Link around this full structural review and solutions needed is really what this approach is attempting to undertake. So the purpose of our sprint, again, we're to really find where these gaps and pressures are and to set ourselves up as a municipality and as a corporation to look at what the next practical steps are in a long-term approach for housing. So today you're going to hear from a number of our team members, Stuart Filson in planning, Kendra Fry from Invest Stratford, and Kelly Simon and Jeff Wilson from social services. We're going to share what we've learned about the current state of housing in Stratford and the work and interventions the city has undertaken, surface some of these key system pressures, how the system's currently responding, and talk a little bit about next steps. So we wanted to host a lot of presentations today, but we really wanted to share kind of the expertise across this team, and it's been a real positive experience for us to work or cross-departmentally like this. So I'll pass it over to Stuart to kick things off.
So development activity has increased significantly over the past 2 years. As the chart shows, the housing starts grew from 208 in 2024 to 323 in 2025, representing a substantial increase. And in just the first 3 months of 2026, 209 starts have already been reported, suggesting that this pace is continuing. Importantly, this growth is occurring across a broad range of housing types that we have historically seen in Stratford. We're seeing more apartments, townhouses, and multiplex forms, reflecting the policy direction of encouraging intensification and more diverse housing typologies. There is a substantial pipeline of housing activity currently underway or in planning. The supply picture is generally improving. However, supply growth doesn't tell the whole story. So building on what I just shared, while supply is increasing, affordability challenges persist. The majority of housing currently being developed remains at market price points. This is not a criticism of the development sector. It reflects the rational market behavior. However, it does have real implications for households who cannot afford those price points. There are also early indications that supply is increasing faster than the absorption in some market segments, which may moderate market rate pricing over time. But this dynamic does not address the structural affordability gap. At the same time, low and moderate income households continue to face significant pressures. The gap between market pricing and what these households can afford is not narrowing. I'll now hand it over to Kendra to share the data on what we know about the scale of that gap.
So the data sheet that you're seeing before you tells us something really important about the scale of unmet need in our community. The data represents Heart Statistics Canada for Perth County, and it indicates that we need an additional 360 very low rent units, reflecting under $415 a month to address the needs of the most acutely housing insecure households. Beyond that, there's a further need for approximately 1,320 low-income market rental units, representing under $1,037 a month, to address broader affordability pressures. The current wait list sits at 732 households, but that number understates the true demand. Hidden demand includes assets for couch surfing, much as Mr. Wellington indicated, living with family out of necessity, or who cannot relocate to Stratford due to cost. So the wait list as such is only a partial measure of demonstrated need and does not reflect total. In 2025, an average of 145 households were experiencing homelessness each month, about 1% of total households. This is comparable to our peer communities, but reflects a sustained pressure. What this points to are two distinct but connected pressures on the system. First, there is the ongoing unmet demand for emergency shelter and supportive housing for the most vulnerable. Second, there's a quantifiable and significant gap in below market rental housing. These pressures are related. Affordability failures at the market level cascade into increased demand for emergency and supportive services. I'll pass over to my colleague.
So we want to help council understand the scale of what is already happening across the housing system. In 2026, $19.6 million in housing related funding will flow through the city. Of that, $5 million, or about 26%, comes directly from the city's tax levy. The remaining $14.6 million flows through provincial and federal funding streams that the city administers as the consolidated municipal service manager for Stratford City Council. Okay. The CMSM role is important. As the service manager, the city has both legislative responsibilities and administrative reach across Perth County and St. Mary's, not just the city of Stratford. This shapes both what we do and how funding flows. These investments span the whole funding spectrum, from homelessness supports and emergency housing services at one end, through to below market housing programs and planning-based enabling work at the other. Delivery happens through multiple channels: direct service provision, partnerships with nonprofit housing providers, and the planning and development process. The next slide will show how this investment is distributed. This chart illustrates how current funding is distributed across the housing sector. The majority of investment is concentrated at community housing and housing stability and development, reflecting both legislative responsibilities related to rent to income housing and the intensive supports required by households experiencing homelessness or housing instability. Rent geared to income housing represents the largest single category. The city owns and operates housing stock that continues to serve residents, and that investment in maintenance and operations is reflected here. This concentration makes sense. It reflects the needs of the most acute and where legislative obligations exist. However, this picture also helps us understand where gaps remain. Investment in the below market rental segment, the range that bridges social housing in the private market, is relatively modest compared to the scale that we identified need that Kendra mentioned.
Thank you, Kelly. This slide reflects how we're thinking about both the short term and the longer term. A whole system view of housing, which this sprint has established, allows council to see both what needs to happen right now and what we're building towards. Investment across the full spectrum is not only needed, it's already happening. So the slide illustrates some of our short-term responses, which we've already talked about tonight, including our partnership and support for shelter-linked youth services, and the report which will be coming back in July regarding the working center. These are both deliberately scoped. We're not asking council to resolve the broader affordability challenge today. These actions respond to immediate pressures while maintaining flexibility for future decision making. We're also taking a look at the longer term side. The sprint has established the foundation, which includes shared definitions, a map system, and identified gaps. Phase 2 will build on that foundation to define the city's role, identify priority interventions, develop a coordinated municipal housing approach for council's consideration. Phase 2 will be conducted through a second sprint, targeting completion in August 2026. Key focus will be exploring partnerships with nonprofits, developers, neighboring municipalities, and upper levels of government to maximize the impact of our municipal investment.
And so I'll just kind of conclude our presentation of this report and just for your audience a little bit to what Jeff just said. So we've completed this first housing sprint, and you'll see in the report we've included our kind of alignment table. So the appendices are the housing spectrum definitions that were agreed to, and we've also mapped along that spectrum the interventions that are currently underway led by the city and with partners, as well as the investment along that spectrum. So the report in front of you today really summarizes that work, shares that shared understanding. We've aligned these corporate-wide definitions and frameworks, mapped those current investments and interventions, and identified, as we've discussed today, and that we've heard from others, some of the key pressures and gaps. This is really trying to set us up for a second sprint, as Jeff mentioned, where we're going to talk and work from analysis to some more action planning. So defining the city's role, what the right level of investment and right level of intervention is, what are those interventions that should be prioritized to improve outcomes, exploring other tools, other programs, other partnerships that will continue to drive better outcomes. We're also really interested in understanding how do we articulate those outcomes? How do we know that these interventions are achieving the types of impacts that we would like? So the central question that we're wanting to look at with others is how do we better align housing supply with the affordability needs that we've talked about, and again, as we've heard about from others today. So the request or the recommendation in front of the council today is to receive this report for information and also provide direction for this cross-departmental team to engage in our second sprint, working together and bring something back to you, those findings in August. And the whole team's here, so if there's any questions, we're happy to take those as well.
Thank you. I'm going to invite the rest of the team back in and take some of our questions. And thank you for the fulsome report. Questions from council. Councilor McKay, go ahead.
Through the chair, just noticing that the further decision on the warming center for report on July 13th, and then we're going to have a second sprint recommendation in August. Does it make sense for us to be aligning all of this in one thing if we're talking about aligning? Does that make sense?
Turn to Ms. Ross or CAO. Ms. Ross.
Yes.
Thank you. Taking those notes. Other comments, or do you want to follow up, Councilor McKay?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Burbank.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks for this report. I really appreciate the sort of drilling down and looking at definitions of particular things and how pieces fit together. I think we've identified some gaps that we can see. I would say transitional housing is probably one of the bigger ones. There was some question around the definition of affordable housing. So I kind of think I know where you were going with this. When you talked in the report about attainable housing, you mentioned that definition is not going to be used anymore. But it appears the same thing is happening with the affordable housing as a term. So maybe just digging a little more into that and where we see that affordable housing on this spectrum where we feel it might sit. Or maybe it doesn't sit on the spectrum.
Yes, we can look at that. See, we can add more detail. So do you want to? No, that's right. Yeah.
You'll take that back.
Yeah. Thanks.
Other items for the group, or questions for the group. Councilor Belford.
Yeah, thanks so much for your beautiful presentation. Just my question for you guys, we're just living like huge crisis. You see, go outside. They have a lot of those people outside. Is that right? Yeah. No, I'm just asking in general, right? I didn't finish it, okay? And then we just were lucky with wonderful countries, wonderful communities. And there were lots of people outside at this moment. Right? And then, because the only our business policy department, the happiness overnight, helping them give them food, right? And then, okay, what is next for this people, right? There is no any service, right? They need service, like mental illness, right? To cover, to give them rehabilitation, like land, right? And then, not homeless, but we need for them to support that. This gives them some space, shelter, right? And this is, where in tourist season, we have a lot of people coming in our town, right? And then these people running around. And then I know this is my responsibility, not only all of our council, this responsibility, all of us, right? But when it's going to finish this one, and then when please, when to find for this people, to find for them shelter, or somewhere to put them, even overnight. Okay, we just open for the warm shelter, November 17th. All the way, November 17th, we open for it, right? And then May 1st, will be awesome. Everybody running around with this about, right? Us and the council and elected was my love of it. I'm not answering, make me cry. Every single night, I'm just going to watch them. I'm just sitting, looking the space to sleep. Right? And my question for you guys, what you doing for us? Do you have any idea for this people?
I'm gonna turn that question over to Director.
Please.
Back please.
Thank you, Councilor Jopa. I do want to make clear, and I'm not sure that it has been made clear during this council meeting tonight. We still have the services of emergency accommodations. So even when we address this warming center, there will still be emergency accommodations that we put through. So that doesn't cease, and again, as we talk and with our police county manager, with yourself, who are working after hours. 519-272-2294 is our emergency after hours to address those who are needing emergency accommodation. I know Councilor Rodoki, you and I have addressed, yes, there are some people that may have restrictions, that is a gap, but generally speaking, we do have a service in place that never ceased during the warming center. And I encourage anyone after hours, if they're in need of housing, to please contact Shelter Link, what's the after hours? Yeah, 519-272-2294, and I believe you have business cards, and so very important.
Councilor Bristol.
Thank you, to the chair. One additional, maybe internal group I'd be interested in consulting with us, would be our legal team as well, because I think especially in the below market rental ownership and those housing gaps, we've really seen across municipalities, you have to have ownership model to maintain our supply, and it's not just address the third, which is to maintain our supply, and then increasing our stocks. We know that the market doesn't necessarily maintain the stock of the specific housing, so we have to play an ownership role. So looking from a legal perspective, but what are the creative contract ways we can start negotiating? You see the first rights for refusal, returning provisions, kind of in different ways cities are addressing this, and then taking that information into those partnership meetings to see who's amenable. I think is a really important first step as well, that bringing that into this would be really helpful.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for the group? Seeing none, I thank you again for your presentation and your work. Next item.
Your worship, turning to your agenda, there is a motion that correspondence for Mike Sullivan be received.
Move to receive those correspondence notes from Mike Sullivan. Move by Councilor Bristol, second by Councilor Cordova. All in favor? Most committee. That's the secretary.
Through your worship, there is a staff recommendation that the housing strategy alignment summary report dated May 11th be received for information. And that council directs staff to proceed with the subsequent sprint to define the city's role and level of investment in housing, identify priority interventions across the spectrum within available fiscal parameters, define metrics of success, and bring forward a consolidated municipal housing approach for council's consideration and direction.
Mover for 7.3, moved by Councilor Bergman, seconded by Councilor Niger, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's unanimous. Carried.
Item 7.4 is a resolution regarding recommendation report for draft plan of subdivision application 31T25-001 and zone change application Z02-25 for 750 McCarthy Road West. And as noted on the agenda, Robin McIntyre will present the report on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. McIntyre. The floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Ritzma, councilors, staff, and members of the public. My name is Robin McIntyre, and I'm a consultant planner working at the city here tonight to present draft plan of subdivision 31T25-001 and zone change application Z02-25 for the lands at 750 McCarthy Road West. Council may remember these applications from a public meeting back in September 2025. The subject lands are north of McCarthy Road West and south of the McNamara Drain between two segments of 4th Street to the east and the west. The site is 4.93 hectares in size with approximately 173 meters of frontage on McCarthy Road West. The site is presently vacant. Colors aren't showing up too well here, but I'll get into that in just a moment. So the site is proposed to be developed with a residential plan of subdivision. The plan of subdivision would include 60 lots intended for single detached dwelling units, one multiple residential lot down in the bottom corner there, which is intended for 16 to 26 dwelling units, and then one stormwater management block up in the top left-hand corner there, stormwater management facilities. The plan also includes a number of roads, the extension of Fraser Drive from the south through McCarthy Road into the site, and then a connection of Orr Street from the eastern and the western extents. To accommodate the draft plan of subdivision, there are 3 zones proposed. Like I mentioned earlier, the colors are a little bit faded here. But looking in the general, the center portion of the site, the R2 to 49 site-specific zoning is intended to cover the low density residential uses, so those 60 lots that I had mentioned previously. The zoning in the bottom right-hand corner for the residential 4 density site would be another site-specific R436. And then the part zone would apply to the stormwater management. The staff report provides the in-depth planning analysis with respect to these applications. I'll try to provide a brief overview, but I'm happy to answer any detailed questions that may have come from the review of the staff report. The subject applications were found to satisfy the criteria for the subdivision of land as included in section 5124 in the Planning Act and have appropriate regard for matters of provincial interest in section 2 of the Planning Act. The applications were found to be consistent with the provincial planning statement as well. With respect to the city's official plan, the subject lands are within the urban boundary and are designated residential areas. The proposed low and medium density uses on the subject lands do conform to the permitted uses within the residential areas designation. The proposed density of 23 to 26 units per net hectare also aligns with the direction of the official plan. The subject applications implement the official plan policies for new residential areas and adhere to community design strategy requirements, while components like street stamping and road networks will be detailed further through conditions of draft approval as recommended
appended to the staff report there. With respect to the secondary plan, the site is designated for low density uses. Single detached dwellings are permitted use within this designation as well. And the subject applications were found to have appropriately addressed the environmental impact study requirements of the secondary plan through channelization works that have already occurred to the McNamara drain. Design of the proposed subdivision provides appropriate servicing, access, noise accommodations, trails, and stormwater management facilities in conformity with the requirements of the secondary plan as well. Looking at the zoning, the subject lands are presently zoned for agricultural living. As I mentioned, these lands are within the urban boundary and are designated for residential use. The proposed zoning would establish 3 separate zoning areas on the subject land. Staff did find that the proposed site-specific regulations for the subject lands do allow for the efficient and flexible development of the lands in order to provide a range of residential tenures and densities throughout the neighborhood. With respect to agency comments, there were quite a few received on the application and the submission circulation right before the public meeting. All concerns have been addressed thus far, and the outstanding comments agencies have provided can be addressed as conditions of draft approval as appended to the staff report. This would include elements like the detailed design for stormwater, grading, servicing, landscape plans, streetscape plans, clearances from external agencies, and the execution of the subdivision agreement. Public comments were also received at the public meeting and before the public meeting. There were a range of comments received, all of which have been reviewed comprehensively and responded to in the staff report. Some of the public comments received are addressed through the conditions of draft approval based on some of the other agency comments. So things like the streetscaping plan address some of those comments, as well as the on-street parking plan reflects some comments pertaining to parking concerns. There were some public comments received that have not been directly integrated into the draft approval conditions. Reason being for that is just legislative jurisdiction. So items related to unit tenures, function, and construction standards have not been reflected as conditions of draft. Staff are recommending approval of both the draft plan of subdivision as subject to the recommended conditions of draft approval attached to the staff report and zoning bylaw amendment application as appended to the staff report as well. This recommendation reflects the planning analysis from the staff report. Satisfies criteria of the Planning Act consistent with the provincial planning statement and reflects the impact of the initial plan. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Presentation, I'll note that Ms. Bossy is here as well from the GSP group for any questions some questions from council for Ms. McIntyre at this time. Councilor Burke, go ahead, please.
Chair, yeah, just a question about the site triangles at the corner. So there was a drawing which had a proposed change. So I'm just curious about how staff felt that addressed the concerns. And maybe that's a question for engineering. Possibly, but yeah, just making sure that what they've proposed works for our site triangles.
Through the chair, I just want to confirm this would be the drawing referred to. So through the chair, the specific drawing is just intended to illustrate that the site-specific regulations requested by the applicant extends the setback requirements of the zoning bylaw. So it provides additional assurance to the city that there would be no encroachment in the existing visibility requirement areas or daylight triangles. During planning's review, we indicated no concerns with this element. I'm not sure if there's any additional comments from during that. But okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? See none, thank you very much. Or would be able to staff recommendations, so
through your worship, just turning to your addendum, there was a request for delegation and there is a motion that Jane Marie Mitchell be heard.
Thank you, mover for that item. Moved by Councilor Wardell, seconded by Councilor Burback, any discussion? All in favor? Those debating, that's unanimous in favor. Evening and welcome. The floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, and members of the public, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. The current Ontario Provincial Policy Statement, called PPS for short, in 2.2, which is housing, states, planning authorities shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet the projected needs of the current and future residents of the regional market area by establishing and implementing minimum targets for the provision of housing that is affordable to low and moderate income households, and coordinating land use planning and planning for housing with service managers to address the full range of housing options, including affordable housing needs. Permitting and facilitating all housing options required to meet social, health, economic, and well-being requirements of current and future residents, including additional needs of housing arising from demographic changes and employment opportunities. From that directive, I understand that a mix of housing options shall meet the needs of current and future residents in an area that has 35% of the population between 20 and 29 young people, and seniors, which is 23.9 or 24%. These individuals needing smaller and more affordable housing. I think that when we are using previous agricultural land for housing, that 60 single detached dwellings is not an efficient use of land, that we must intensify, realizing that we are using prime agricultural land that will no longer produce our food. So we need to honor that. I don't think single detached does that. The last census of 2021 showed that seniors in Stratford that are 65 years of age and over constitute 23.9% of the population, which is 7,701 people, or 1 in every 4 persons. The figure for Canada is 9.19%, and for Ontario, 18.5%. We invite these seniors to Stratford, and we have more than the average. And I think the numbers will increase quite a bit with the baby boomer bubble for the current census that's underway. In planning housing, we should then meet the needs of these groups by providing appropriate and affordable housing for single and coupled seniors as they downsize or right-size their housing. We've all known about this phenomenon since the early 1980s, as university courses in gerontology prepared for a high increase of seniors. It doesn't appear that the housing sector has prepared as well. The younger generation was starting out ages 20 to 29, which is 11% of the census in 2021, have similar needs for housing. I found 9 references in the PPS for mixed housing within the report, and I don't believe that this development is providing for current and future residents sufficiently. The following is also taken from the PPS for 2024. Ontario's land use planning framework and the decisions that are made shape how our communities grow and prosper. And while many Ontarians still face a complex range of challenges, municipalities will work with the province to support the long-term prosperity and well-being of residents through the design of communities responsive to the needs of all Ontarians. Zoning and development permit bylaws should be forward-looking and facilitate opportunities for an appropriate range and mix of housing options for all Ontarians. Within the framework of the provincially policy-led planning system, planning authorities and decision makers may go beyond the minimum standards to address matters of importance to specific communities, unless doing so would conflict with any policy of the PPS. Furthermore, 2.4 general policies for strategic growth areas states planning authorities shall support general intensification and redevelopment to support the achievement of complete communities, including by planning for a range and mix of housing options, intensification, and more mixed-use development. Strategic growth areas should be planned to accommodate significant population and employment growth as focal areas for education, commercial, recreational, and cultural uses, and to support affordable, accessible, and equitable housing. In our own current official plan, it states that affordable means 30% of total income to allow for low and moderate income households to buy and maintain their own housing or rent. This includes the younger generation just starting and seniors, most of who are on a smaller fixed income to live off of. For our seniors who helped to build this city and country, we now need to provide them adequate housing for their needs. This could be in the form of apartments that intensify using the agricultural land efficiently and that are barrier-free with elevators, as a large percentage of seniors will have temporary, which I have at the moment, and more permanent mobility issues to deal with as they age. This would be appropriate for them, and quite frankly, everyone, and use land more efficiently than single dwellings that require more land and more work to maintain. There is no provision in this plan for commercial uses, which could be combined with a larger residence site to allow for those seniors and young people that are not vehicle owners to supply their food and other needs within a local area of 1 to 2 kilometers of where they live. This could also include restaurants and services, etc. Alternatively, a small strip mall, which is not preferred as an option, but it could also have levels of housing above it with 1 or 2 bedrooms. There is no provision for smaller and affordable homes for younger generations or seniors stated in this development, which shall provide for my first statement. Many seniors are putting larger homes on the markets while needing something smaller with less maintenance and much easier physical access. Being forward-thinking, as the PPS states, as a role, means accessibility of all newer homes, which to me means no stairs into the dwelling, which is great for everyone. And it should be mandated as we look to the future. And since these houses will still be with us, hopefully for 80 or more years. Also, in 2.9, energy conservation, air quality, and climate change of the PPS states that planning authorities shall plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and prepare for the impacts of a changing climate through approaches that support the achievement of compact, transit supportive, and complete communities. Also, that corporate climate change considerations in planning for and the development of infrastructure Also, the consideration of any other approaches that would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build community resilience to the impacts of changing climate. With these directives, I do believe that developers shall, as the climate change manager is asked, provide EV-ready electrical junction boxes, also solar panels, positioned south-facing, and/or geothermal energy with heat pumps for both heating and cooling, which would help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which the PPS suggests. Some, if not all, of these strategies can help prepare the residents for the impacts of a changing climate and fit in with our community climate action plan. This development, as well as future developments in Stratford, need to serve those here with right-sized, affordable housing in an area that suits their needs for community and services. All of these ideas are supported by either or both the official plan and the PPS, and I believe these are ideas that the community can get behind. I urge less single detached houses, dwellings, and more intensification that is barrier-free for the current residents needing housing, especially our seniors and younger people, which make up 35% of our population. Thank you for hearing my voice.
Mitchell, questions or comments at this time? Too excited.
So as noted on the agenda, there is quite a comprehensive staff recommendation.
Yes. So. Is there a motion for the 7.4 staff recommendation? Councilor Hunter will move, seconded by Councilor Knight. Thank you. Discussion with regards to the motion that's found on page 5. Councilor Sanders, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just I think top of mind in this development is at a recent meeting we talked about the food bill, private members bill, and its provincial legislation that's going forward at some point. And so we had a discussion about density on agricultural land, and I think for me, ideally, I would like to see more density. Though, for me, this parcel is the development will be directly abutting to existing residential neighborhoods, and so I do think this development strikes a balance between a dense block and a block that fits in with the neighborhood. So I do support that.
Thank you. Other comments or questions with regards to this item? Seeing none, it's been moved and seconded. I will call the question. All in favor? Most debating, that's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Next item.
Your worship, item 7.5 is a resolution regarding addressing Stratford Police Service need, and the Chief Administrative Officer will present the report.
Thank you. Let's go over this in red this time.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you have the report in front of you. As you were all aware, back in January, the city passed a letter of intent with Scotiabank to at least do some due diligence. And here's kind of where we are today. So what brings us here is we have a facilities needs assessment that has been done by the police services. The building around the police services building, the discussion on police services building has been had for many years now. This assessment was done, received in February, and included in your report today. So again, the council reviews that report and certainly agrees that there's a need, both the need in regards to the condition of the building, but more importantly, a need in regards to growth of the building to meet today's standards, but also into the future. Then you start looking at options. The one option, obviously, is to renovate the current structure. Another option, obviously, to consider is building new. The third option is to renovate something else or find another facility. The reason we brought forward in January the letter of intent with Wright Boulevard was that opportunity was an opportunity that was available to us. Looked at the building, staff looked at that building. It brings a unique opportunity that may be able to save the city some funds if and when that report is received, which now is received in February. So this report is a little bit of those found findings. So without going into too much details in the report, I'll highlight a few areas that I wanted to talk to in this report around, first of all, renovation and expansion. We did all this work in-house at this point in time as we developed these processes. To look at the current building, obviously, we have about 20,000 square feet that we utilize for the police station now, and we lease out another approximately 7,000 square feet on Erie Street. For a total of about 27,000 square feet that we utilize today. The facilities assessment suggested the police will need around 55,000 square feet moving forward. So the other piece is also the top floor we use for courts, so around 7,000 square feet there that we use for the courts system. And one of the advantages of the courts being with the police is we as the police service provide both court security and prisoner transportation. Those save our operating costs, but again, we can enjoy the hip to a certain degree and provide those services in one location. Knowing the condition of that building, knowing the way it's currently been is configured, we estimate that cost to be around $35 to $40 million to renovate the current facility, and it may not still meet those needs. We need to provide some additions to the building. One way or the other, some significant improvements, again, of operating issues that happen in the renovating structure, etc. That's not an in-depth analysis, but I was just looking at straight information that we have in our building condition assessments, looking at the building and seeing what we see. There's unfortunate at this point in time, there's a lot of municipalities dealing with this very same issue around Ontario and other places in Canada. All are looking at very extreme costs when it comes to renovating and or building new structures. So again, I think that number, again, we need some analysis, but certainly it's a challenging number. I'll get into the finances in a second. The new construction, again, fairly straightforward. What we're seeing out there in the industry from places like Sarnia that have just done some work on this is around the $900 to $1,000 a square foot just to build a new structure. Obviously, that would put us around the $50 to $55 million mark, where that location and the cost of land would not necessarily be included in that number. Not something we've done a lot of work on, and certainly not something that is in our long-term capital plan in regards to trying to accommodate that type of structure. Which brings us really to the nature of this report is the adaptive reuse of 10 and 52 Wright Boulevard. So the opportunity here is this building is 100,000 square feet. It's over 100,000 square feet, fairly new built in 1990. Has substantial amount of parking, also has some visual land as well. And the way that structure is built, it's very wide open, both in the office space compartment, but also in warehousing and more industrial space pieces. So again, it allows itself to be fairly well renovated or more easily renovated than say our current building as it is now. And again, our estimates certainly at staff level, we think that can be done at total all-in cost of around $20 to $26 million from the purchase price and renovation costs to meet most, if not all, of what the facilities assessment report is in. What we need to do next, of course, is to confirm those numbers as we move forward with some due diligence from third parties to make sure that what we're presenting in front of you makes sense. Again, staff has spent a lot of time doing what we can. Now the next step, we can take that one step. We have done some initial assessments on the post-disaster review. Again, if you're significantly renovating or building new emergency services like police, you need to make sure that you meet certain standards on the building code. And again, that would require some work, likely 600,000 to 1.2 million. We'll have to report for you in regards to that number as we move forward. The other piece, of course, is some other considerations with that space. Obviously, if we only need 50,000 square feet, 55,000 square feet, what happens with the rest of the space? obviously the courts is one of the discussion points. We've had initial conversations with the province around courts, would they move with us? The short answer is they have some requirements, but the answer is yes, they would. They also require enhanced spaces and more space than they have today. They rent about 10,000 square feet from us. They would likely require 17,000 square feet in the future. So again, what does that look like and what does that process look like? They currently pay the city a market rent. Those arrangements can either be made forward in a market rent type structure where the rent pays for the costs of the building and rental improvements, or again, they have some opportunities possibly for some opportunities or capital purchase. Again, all of those are determined. We don't necessarily have a solid yes. We do have basically an intent that the answer from staffers are we would be moving and we want to remain in Stratford and we'd like enhanced spaces and we if you meet these criteria, we would say that for the city of Stratford. So with that said, there's also some other advantages to the property around the parking and the vacant land that adjacent with that 4-acre parcel of land has an opportunity to either be quickly split right away, sold for industrial purposes, or can be used for internal purposes. Again, one of the things we looked at in this is when we're looking at our business case strictly for the police, was to look at this building strictly for police business case. Extra space, however, would also bring about other opportunities for the city. We do have some space needs around some of our offices, some of our public works, and some of our other operations. So what does that look like in solving those space needs? Those are pros and plus on top of this, we didn't necessarily get in that. We've done some work on what might happen with that space, what can be moved, where can we consolidate other older buildings and get rid of those buildings and then move forward with a bigger or one structure that houses different areas of our operations. But what we wanted to take a look at is just this building strictly from a police business case perspective. If that makes sense, then everything else we would do on a bonus for structure and then again bring those reports back to you as the best case scenario as we move forward. So I'll dive into the right boulevard a little bit deeper in a second. The other consideration, of course, that we've heard from the public was the YMCA, and we're going to hear a little bit about that today. So we have not in depth looked at that for police structure for a couple of reasons. Number one, obviously, as council knows, and the past 2 weeks ago, that is one of the main areas we're looking at for the new facility for the GTR. And then secondly, again, we didn't go into the details with YMCA as to the purposes of what they might want to do if we do not use the YMCA as a new community facility. That's their decision as to what they do with that property, how they maintain it, keep it, sell it, whatever they do from that perspective. We haven't gone down that road. Having said that, we did recently just obtain a quote from the consultant that did our work on the community facility in that costing to see if, because they've been in the building, because they've seen all of that work, what it would cost for them to together a high level cost, convert that into a police services building. They said they can get that work done in 5 or 6 weeks. 4 to 5 weeks for a cost of $30,000 to $35,000. So that is an option the council chooses to move forward with. And certainly, I would ask you to put a resolution on the floor tonight to do that, and we will get that back to you when you come forward. Then you have that information and you can find decisions as we move forward. So going back to the Wright Boulevard piece, I talked a little bit about courts. There's been some questions about property tax revenue. Yes, that property currently pays in municipal tax, in total taxes, it'll pay 160 to 170,000. What comes in municipal coffers is about 140,000 a year. In our current police building right now, the court piece is charged property taxes, so it's taxable. The rest of the police building is currently exempt. So again, if you flip that and courts came over with us to a Wright Boulevard property, and again, you got that enhanced space, 17,000 square feet, we estimate that they would pay that payment of tax would be around $35,000. So the net loss in property tax revenue for the city would be about $105,000. So then how do you recruit that? Obviously, George Street would be a property, would become surplus for the city, would be sold and redeveloped. Changed, so again, there'd be property taxation that would come out of that property, and then going back to that potential industrial land that's there. If that industrial land were to become fully taxable, fully developed, there's again opportunities there. For a 4 acre parcel of industrial land with a building on it typically raises around $100,000 to $150,000 in property taxes. Well, again, there are different ways that property taxes can be recouped. Having said that, the more important piece as we get into the Wright Boulevard review is, again, going back, if we accept we need to enhance the size of our police station, this option may, and I say may because this is our preliminary estimate, we want to get confirmed, may save the city around $10 to $15 million in total capital costs to renovate the Wright Boulevard versus what it's going to take to renovate our current or build a new structure. We'll confirm that number moving forward is the intent. And again, that would far exceed the $100,000 or $140,000 we may lose in property taxes moving forward. Again, not really looking at the location has raised some concerns, obviously not being in the downtown core. We've had conversations with our police services around that. What the general consensus is, they've been going through a strategic planning piece. That'll be something that comes forward to council in fairly short order, so that'll help you with your decisions around police services moving forward. But I think there's a lot of conversation around the facility itself, but also the core service. And I think you'll find we're going to do a lot more work in our downtown core as it is, regardless of where the police station is located and where that headquarters is. And it really is around how they get the folks to do their work, how they do their patrols. There obviously would be opportunities, as we talked about in the past, to do satellite location, whether that's in City Hall or somewhere else downtown, that allows them to park their vehicle, do walkabouts, have an office to have meetings with people from that perspective. But again, there's opportunities to deal with that. And again, please are here if you have questions on that, they certainly can answer that. And then lastly, our initial review of the operating costs obviously is a big piece. We've done that on page 7 or 191 of your agenda. Page 7 of my report is around comparing 17 George versus 10 Wright Boulevard. Obviously, Wright Boulevard is a much bigger building, a lot more costs. Having said that, it's newer, more efficient than our current building. The other piece, of course, is there's the rent recovery we would have from the imports. That would be higher in it because we're renting out more space, 17,000 square feet versus 10,000 square feet. We've enhanced our capital transfer. If we move to a bigger building, obviously over time, we need more in our reserve transfers for asset management purposes. But then we also eliminate the lease. We pay a fairly substantial lease at Erie Street right now for that extra 7,000 square feet. So we would eliminate that need for that $190,000 that would come back into the operations. So from a net perspective, you'll see on my chart, we're about negative $26,000. So we're actually, from an operational standpoint, and this is strictly operations from the facilities perspective, not an operations from the police and the work that they do perspective or growth and those enhancements. But basically costs around $26,000. I would basically call it breaking even. In a sense, the way we've structured it, when we're looking at the math, we would probably break even on that building from an operational standpoint at this point in time. So to conclude, what we're presenting and what you have in front of you tonight is we have entered into a letter of intent that allows us to enter into an agreement of purchase and sale. That agreement of purchase and sale is still non-binding, would have, in essence, give us time to do our due diligence and do this third-party review so that we ensure that you have the numbers that you need. And I have some insurance myself that I can give you this recommendation that you can do this work within the amount of money that we thought we could, or we think we can. And then would allow you, council, to make that final decision when we bring back that final report. That allows us to do a little bit of work on the due diligence, do a little bit of environmental work, which again, there's no concerns from that perspective from what we've seen thus far. But we do need some updates to those reports, their reports from 2023. And then allow us to come back to you with our final findings and a final recommendation as to all of these items that I just talked about tonight in more detail. And so tonight, I guess what I'm looking for is that what's in the staff report, but also is if council has further questions or further items that you need us to get answers with. If we're to proceed with this, what we need again add in our due diligence as we move forward and getting done a lot of preliminary work so far and thank staff that worked on this one. And we do have a pretty good plan to move forward to council assess our report tonight. Then we bring back more fulsome information with fuller costings on right Boulevard itself and see to make sure what our estimates are would match what you have in the budget. Going back, if you remember through our workshops with the GTR, we included in our long-term 20-year plan, $20 million of net dollars in our capital planning as we move forward. A portion of that obviously comes from long-term debt. A portion there'd be a little bit extra there when I say $20 to $26 million. There's some opportunities for either sale of other properties that can make up part of that difference, and then development charters can make up a portion of that difference as well. So that net of $20 million is what we're working with for the total of around 25 to 26 million. That's what we're working within as a all-in number, including purchase price plus renovations, etc. So with that, happy to answer any questions council may have.
Any questions prior to getting to the delegations? Councilor Nigel.
I'll be supporting the staff recommendation, right? This recommendation is about ensuring Stratford Police Services has a facility that is operational, effectively, financial responsible, and sustainable for the future. After reviewing the available options, located the primary police headquarters at Great Boulevard represents the most practical, cost-effective solution for the city of Stratford and our community. The current policing environment requires facilities that support modern operational needs, officer safety, secure evidence management, technology infrastructure, training capacity, and future growth. The Wright Boulevard location provides the space, accessibility, parking, expansion, and opportunity necessary to meet those requirements both today and well into the future. Equally important, this recommendation does not mean losing community presence in the downtown core. As discussed already, this includes maybe maintaining a smaller downtown satellite office that preserves visibility, accessibility, community engagement, an important relationship between police services, residents, businesses, and visitors. This approach balances operational efficiency with community policing principles. From a financial perspective, this option allows city to move forward in a measured, responsible way. It avoids many of the limitations and long-term costs associated with attempting to retrofit or expanding a facility that were not designed for modern policing requirements. This recommendation is not simply about a building, it's about creating a policing model that is secure, adaptable, fiscally responsible, and capable of serving Stratford for decades to come. Council has an opportunity to make a forward-looking decision to support public safety, protect taxpayers, and position Stratford Police Services to continue delivering a high-quality police service that our growing community requires. For those reasons, I respect, support, and forward a recommendation of 10 Wright Boulevard as a primary headquarters location and support a downtown community police presence.
Thank you. Are there other comments before we get to the delegations? Go ahead.
Through the chair, first of all, thank you to the CEO and staff for providing such a wholesome look at what the implications of any look like for the city, and really uncovering the opportunity that Wright Boulevard provides for the city, both for the police services and opportunities beyond that. I also appreciate the fact that the insight into the interest in that existing police services as an enhanced retail and residential property, which would really sort of enhance the downtown core in the future and provide extra taxes that we could possibly be losing from the occupation of the Wright Boulevard with police services. So overall, this is an impressive piece of information for us to be able to receive. I am interested in understanding where we would go in putting forward a recommendation to get an assessment of the Y facility and where that money would be located in this year's budget if we were to make such work.
Sorry, I can see it. In regards to
Yeah, further, Mayor, thank you for your comments. In regards to the extra funds that would be required to do this extra study. There is no necessary budget for it, so again, what would happen, what we would do, and I'll kind of defer to the treasurer. But likely what we do, you would go into the capital unfinanced piece of this work. And if and when we were to move forward, when that work would be either budgeted in 2027 or debt was received in 2027, it would be part of that whole, the soft costs in relation to the capital bill, the renovation or bill, whatever the case may be in our station.
Director Cooper, do you want to add anything on that?
No, that's true.
Any other comments or questions? No, further.
Through the chair, yeah, just comment and then a couple of questions. We have been talking about the police station since my time on council. I know long before that, because I've had some people in the public ask, why all of a sudden are we talking about the police station and needing a large facility? This is probably a long time need. The current building is not in good shape, has a lot of issues. So this opportunity that we have for Wright Boulevard does seem like a practical one. I do appreciate the additional information provided, and I would like to see more information. My first question, you may or may not have an answer to, but as we were talking about tax revenue from these various buildings, do we collect tax revenue from the YMCA?
CEO.
Through the mayor,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, whichever motion on the answer, but no, they are exempted from taxation.
They're exempted. Okay, and my second question is, in the report, you kind of mentioned that, you know, we looked at the renovation of the YMCA, approximately 50 million to put a community facility in that would be 70,000 square feet. So that the police station would actually require less square footage, however, more complicated needs. So in your best guesstimate, or are you willing to go there? Would it be approximately the same cost, do you think? Like, I'm just thinking, rather than spending $35,000 for somebody to tell us that it's gonna cost the same amount as what we have already found out about renovating that facility, do we need to go through that exercise, or can we use our educated guesses to know that it's going to be rather costly?
CEO.
Through the mayor, so a couple of things there. The key question becomes, how important is it for the courts to follow us as to where to go? Therefore, the courts do come, then let's say 50,000 square feet plus another 17. You're still looking at very close to that 70,000 square feet building, which then arguably the cost that we have to build a community facility, much different in nature in regards to uses. But it gives you a rough idea of that. Again, when we came up with our numbers, we were using some of that information, diced it down, did not include reports into that scenario. But if you include the courts and you still need to build 7,000 square feet at that facility, we need to do some significant upgrades and renovations and obviously some additions. So we think that number, like we told you before, is likely much closer to $35 to $40 million than what we think it would be at Wright Boulevard. Is our best guess at this time.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. I did have a question regarding the 55,000 square feet number. And I was just wondering if we, so I'm just thinking if in 5 years our outside contracts don't renew and they go with a different service provider or something like that scenario in 10 years, do we still require 55,000 square feet if we're only serving Stratford? My concern is that we build a facility or have a facility that we have all this square footage and then suddenly our partners go with somebody else and we're on the hook for the long-term investment anyway. So I was just wondering if you had.
So through Mayor, I will, if I'm wrong in my assessment or my numbers in regards to the amount of officers to St. Mary's and or South, it's 3 and 4 out of a total of 70. ish. So again, it's not a significant amount of the amount of personnel that we would have. So again, it would have a minimal impact on our current needs if we lost those contracts. More importantly, it's the growth that we have had and likely we will continue to have in Stratford proper that's going to be the impact of what that contributes looks like. And again, what we have in front of us around the facilities assessment piece is that best case scenario, all their needs would be 55,000 square feet. When we take a deeper dive into if we're going to move forward, it doesn't matter which option you look at, whether it's a renovation, a building, or a regular or otherwise. When we get into the design, that's when we'll get into a very deep dive into what are the true needs, where are there shared spaces, where are the common spaces, and our expectation is the amount that is needed today is going to be less than the 55,000 square feet. Plus, what shared spaces do we have? If it's a right boulevard and we're sharing that space with the ports, with other city services, what are the common elements? What are common meeting rooms that can be utilized by all three parties? What are common lunch rooms, et cetera, that can be used by all three parties? Therefore, the police may get, and I'm just throwing numbers out here, may get 40,000 square feet, ports may get, instead of 17,000, 15,000 square feet, or 10,000 square feet of shared space. The idea being those spaces can be shifted and moved around as the city continues to grow. And again, we want to take a very strategic look at what that looks like, what their needs are, what our needs are, so that today they may only need truly 40,000 square feet of just strictly 100% release space that might be able to shift into 50,000 square feet in 10 years from now. That might force one of our other tenants, i.e. the city or something else, to look at something else as we move forward. So again, we want to be very strategic as how we look at that. But again, that would be the next phase of a deep dive into the actual design and needs assessment of all parties here that process. And again, the important piece, as we talked about with the GTR project, today is a decision to we continue to move forward with this opportunity and take a deeper dive. And then in say 2 months from now, you'll make the final decision. Even in final decision stage, we are still 18 months to 24 months before we're really getting into construction, et cetera. People are moving into, or at least the police service that are moving in. Not that facility is moving ready to a certain degree, and there might be some opportunities there. But again, the deeper review of the actual space and the design will be the next step on the project, regardless of the shift.
Councilor Nudge.
Through the mayor, just one piece is that GTR and the YMCA, they're like more of a community hub where residents, visitors, everybody go and kind of gets together. A police station has a different purpose, and it's not a place where, you know, you want to see prisoners being moved in and out, you know, being transported. So that's a different section. I think that having a police station within that vicinity or within that corridor, I don't think it's very well planned out for the community. And putting this somewhere like that, I think this is an opportunity we have. We can kind of separate that piece as well. So it's a number of different factors we can look.
Thank you. Other comments? Seeing none at this time, Parker, wonder if we could go to the addendum at this time.
Your worship, yes, so as noted on the addendum, there is a request for delegation with the motion that Robert Riggs be heard.
Moved by Councilor Gable, moved seconded by Councilor Burbank. All in favor? Councilor Henry, that's third. Well, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm delegating because it seems that council's focus has shifted as a result of the projects that have come forward since your term began. Tonight, I'm going to outline a few reasons why council should not rush to buy 10 Wright Boulevard and how a new police headquarters can allow you to continue focusing on earlier priorities. Major focus of council's priorities for this term was the Grand Trunk renewal. The police headquarters is not even on the list. The new police headquarters is not listed on the police 2026 capital budget. Agreed. The police do need to be under one roof in a state-of-the-art building. But why this sudden urgency? Missing a market opportunity is not a valid reason for urgency. The tax generated by town right could amortize $2 to $6 million plus the 14 million purchase price would provide 16 to 20 million to repurpose the Y into the police headquarters. If 10 right is purchased, what is the future for these buildings? Since 10 right has greater value as a tax generating property, why not buy the YMCA, which does not pay property taxes? The funds from the sale will anchor the fundraising efforts for the GTR project. The policing, the downtown location better serves the community they protect. For the courts, the downtown location better serves the users and the community. The law courts and the police are part of the downtown's economic engine. 10 right is an economic hit. Lead by example. You don't invest at the edge of the city while the economic heart of your city is waiting for revival. The 15-minute city and the one planet principle are best served by a downtown location. For the convenience of the users of the police headquarters and the courts, the downtown location is superior. Live the plan. Imagine the police law courts at 10 right. The staff, lawyers, and judges will quickly realize how inconvenient it is and realize it is not a matter of walking down the street like it is now. It's getting into the car and driving. The goal for the future is less dependence on the car. 10 right doesn't meet that. The YMCA is a partner. They don't have a buyer for the building. If they don't have a buyer for the building, they have less money to invest in the project. A $4 million sale price would be a big part of their fundraising. The city is a GTR partner that needs a building, and the city can move the GTR project forward with the purchase of the YMCA. This will anchor their fundraising. The purchase of 10 right does not. By developing the YMCA, the building would be upgraded to meet current insulation. The insulation requirement in the 1990 10 building was much lower and are likely won't be upgraded. The council objective is to follow the one planet principle. Purchase of 10 right won't make that happen. Finally, if you want your business to stay downtown, if you want your businesses to stay downtown, lead by example and keep your business downtown, as it will support downtown Stratford's economy. Purchase of 10 right won't. The wise, awkwardly shaped footprint makes it challenging to adopt to residential. The most viable use, not this facility, is office space, which is low demand, and being on the market for over a year, 10 right proves this. The YMCA may not find a buyer, which may delay or jeopardize its tenancy at the GTR development. Why take that risk? Why purchase 10 right or any other site that will reduce the property tax assessment? The objective of council should be to generate tax revenue and increase economic development, not reduce it. And who is best served in the long term if the city buys 10 right? The citizens of Stratford or the shareholders of Scotiabank? Council holds the key to advancing the major focus of council's priorities for the term, the GTR renewal. It is a win-win situation if the city purchases the Y for the police headquarters. Recommendation for council: take a step back before moving forward, conduct the required due diligence to make a comprehensive comparison between the 10 right building and the YMCA as the repurposed police headquarters. Perform an economic impact assessment. The YMCA for the police aligns more closely with the city's priorities and objectives and offers a big picture fiscal value. Kennedy is not focused on the option that supports the GTO. Thank you. Is that the one?
You're done, but
I know.
I was a little confused. I didn't give you that. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Questions or comments at this time? Councilor McCabe.
Through the chair, thanks for your position. I happen to disagree with it in the sense that first of all, I don't think that we are looking for a renewal of our downtown core. We have a very strong downtown core with more retail and more restaurants than any other community that I travel to. And I think given the opportunity to add more retail and more living space downtown, on that space, it would become even more successful. This is an opportunity, as you know, yes, it was not a priority at the beginning of our council, but at the same time, when given the opportunity to save significant capital over a long period of time with a structure that is at least somewhat modern, where we do not have a lot of modern facilities, this building being one of them, which are costly but not perhaps adapted to their current use. This presents a very real opportunity for the city, while also an opportunity to renew the downtown core, in my opinion.
Thank you, Councilor McCabe. Other comments or questions at this time? Councilor Wardle.
So, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Do you know how much it costs? One second, did you include it in what's called library?
Well,
You see what I'm seeing, the video.
I've been busy on the other building.
Okay.
So I have costs, again, that's my true request is to look at it. And Andre suggested that for 35,000, I guess, you can maybe have a review of the line, then we'll all know for sure, you know, where is the best spot. But part of that economic impact assessment is to address Councilor McCabe's comment. I may agree with what Councilor McCabe's saying, or we disprove it, but you know, the people that go to that building, or use that building for the parks, it's a fair number, and I'm sure I know when you go to lunch, people are there from the courts, or you know, you're out for a coffee.
Other comments or questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We have staff recommendation on
Through your worship, yes, that's correct. The staff recommendation is that council directs the chief administrative officer to sign a non-binding agreement for sale on behalf of the corporation for the purpose of the property at 1052 Red Boulevard, subject to completion of the due diligence period satisfactory to the city. That council directs staff to complete due diligence, including confirmation of renovation costs, post-disaster structural assessment, and verification of space requirements. And that council directs staff to report back the findings of the due diligence and a detailed implementation plan prior to any final commitment purchase.
Councilor Niger.
I would like to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder, Councilor Bean will move. Any other conversations here going with Councilor Satterfield?
Thank you. I'm not gonna reiterate all the reasons why I don't support the move to 10 Red Boulevard. I did want to comment though on and I do agree that we do have a strong and vibrant downtown, and I think the key is to not self-inflict harm to our vibrant downtown, and we could have, and hopefully if the police headquarters do move from that location, we would have a revitalization of a sort. But I think it would be hard pressed to find occupants or tenants of that location that would have as much foot traffic and economic activity coming from that location, with whether it's officers, employees, and people utilizing the courts and the space. And just to comment also on the proximity to a space like a community center, the YMCA, they have habitated across the street from each other for forever, and we haven't had any concerns or issues. And then, you know, I don't know that we want to keep our downtown strong. We shouldn't be pulling things out of it. And with this move to a 100 square foot building. And then potentially moving other municipal services from the downtown core to the edge of town, it's just. I think more than we're anticipating, because it's something, you buy a huge 100 square foot building and you use half of it. The other half, we're not just gonna let sit empty, we're going to be. Quickly try and find ways to fill it, and that would most likely pull officers and things from downtown, so. I will continue to oppose the recommendation.
Thank you. Other comments, Councilor Gay?
Through the chair, further to the discussion about vibrancy at downtown core, it is very clear with you when you see the developments that the Chinese are doing on Wellington Street and close their development on Wellington Street. We're seeing a revitalization of the downtown core as a place for people to live. So you can see clearly on that site where the police station is that you could have another intensification of people living in our downtown core, people who want to be in a walkable city and have chosen to live in a downtown location where there's good retail, there's good shops, there's good food opportunities there. So that's the vision that I see for the downtown core, and finding a place where administration really would work in a purpose-built facility, enhancing the opportunity for some other administrative functions of our city. I think just makes inherent sense, and we have this unique opportunity to save $15 million in our capital costs over a long period of time. I think it's a very significant argument.
Thank you, Councilor Bristol.
Thank you.
As
a thing, as much as we're talking about downtown core, we have to come back to the original purpose of what are the needs of the police and therefore their operations to provide community safety, that is. Their facility no longer meets those needs, and we've detailed there's fleet concerns, there's training concerns, and that's their ultimate good that they provide to our community, and they are unable to meet it in this space. That again should be the ultimate focus of what meeting their needs and supporting them to meet their needs. So I think perhaps as the report comes back, that the safety plan is coming, as well as a strategic plan, having a through line of that explains what these renovations do and what that translates to as far from a safety perspective, a community perspective, and then the benefits to our perspective as well, would be really beneficial, because I think that's kind of getting lost in this discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Burback, and then Councilor Nigel.
Through the chair, yeah, 2 comments about similar to what Councilor Briscoe was saying, the needs of the police being met, and sort of our perception of what the needs are downtown. I know that at the BIA we've had conversations around police presence, but that doesn't necessarily mean parked cars, and it means boots on the ground. So I'm glad to hear that is a part of this whole consideration, that the police presence could be increased downtown, and that there would be a downtown location of some sort where people would have an accessible way to interact with police, and a friendly presence, which hopefully wouldn't have too many prisoners involved. And the BIA also had a conversation around commercial needs downtown, and I would say that the consensus there was that there was a need for more commercial space downtown. That there is actually there are companies and businesses that would like to stay in the downtown that can't find facilities that are large enough. So I think the addition of the current police building and also the YMCA could provide great opportunities for other businesses that want to stay downtown. I agree with the comments that are downtown. It is quite vibrant already, but to make assumptions that those buildings would not attract more businesses and more economic activity downtown, I think would be a little off base.
Thank you. Councilor Knight.
Through the mayor, I just want to kind of, what Councilor McCabe said earlier, I really want to echo that we have a vibrant downtown. And going back to, this is more than just a building, this is a police service that the city requires to protect, just the community here, or visitors. And also when visitors come, they feel safe. So and they're working in an environment that is appropriate and which is required in the expectations of the police service. So, yeah, I support this 100%.
Counselor Reed, go ahead, please.
Thank you for the mayor. The way that I see this too is that we don't just take the police and put them somewhere to meet our needs. I feel like we need to provide a space for them that meets their needs so they can serve the community to the best of their ability. And the way that all of these numbers are working out, if we look at the right boulevard, not only would we be meeting their needs so that they can serve us better, but we would also be saving the taxpayer up $15 to $20 million in the process of doing that. And so in my opinion, it's just a win-win. I don't see a downside to this, so.
Thank you. Let's Councilor Burback, man.
Thank you, through the chair. Just one more thought that occurs to me is that we were doing an internal facility use study, I think, which would also give us some indication of other departments or uses by city staff for potential the extra space at the right boulevard. I'm curious as to how that facility study is coming along.
Yeah, CEO.
So through the mayor, so we have conducted that study. We had some initial internal reviews. Some things have happened over a year or so, some things have not, based on decisions and looking at spaces. To be honest, which is why some spaces we looked at over the last year and a half have been done. So as part of this project, what we're doing as well is looking at our internal space needs. Is this an option or not? We don't want to confuse the issue around police headquarters and space needs, but at our next report, we'll identify for council opportunities that may present themselves for our space requirements. And again, if you went through as we went through the 2026 budget, you would have seen in that long-term capital plan a lot of items regarding space needs, facility needs in regards to public works, in regards to some of our parks and facilities. The police station was in there for 2027 budget item. And then obviously fires, another thing that is longer term in that 10-year plan. But as the master plan gets completed this year and our new master plan gets done, again, some of those facilities are as we move through as well. So facilities have been a big part of council's asset management strategies and putting those funds together to, number one, identify what our condition assessments are for all of our facilities and how do we improve those, but also what are our space needs. And as the city has grown, is continuing to grow, our needs and our pressures are growing as well, and we're going to really try to do that as most efficiently as possible, which likely hopefully means consolidating some of our to less older facilities, more new facilities, more maintained facilities, more efficient facilities.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, I guess my point was that we've been looking at the space needs the city has. We have needs, so it's not like we're inventing potential needs to be able to fill the rest of the right boulevard building. There's been a lot of needs that have been discussed over the years, especially offices and that kind of administration space.
Yes, and through the mayor, I don't believe that our current assessments have been shared with council. Yeah, so that's again something we've been working with internally, something we can start to share the message.
Any other comments? Councilor Dolphin.
Thank you. So, Chair, do we have any survey, public survey, or the community survey of the situation? The second question, so what would like the policy by Boulevard, I mean by the right boulevard? Do we have any like structure or maybe like a plan or any like design or?
So through the mayor, first question around survey. We don't have a survey. What we have is a needs assessment that was conducted, which included a survey of our police services department as to what their needs are.
What you also have coming, or what the police service board has coming in front of them is the strategic plan, the Metro strategic planning process. I believe that plan is gonna get tabled with the police services board later this month or early next month. That included some surveys as well of the public around police services in general, police needs. And I think that will talk a lot about your police services and you'll get some good information, which again will help with this decision as we move forward. So you'll get that over the next month or so as we move forward. Going back to the plan, so what we have is what's called a functional facilities assessment, which basically says this is how much space you need. What we're gonna do now is what we've done internally is taking the plans for Right Boulevard, taking a look at what we fit where, how that box looks like, and what we think we can cost that out. Now we're gonna get a little bit of more detail around taking these spaces, very much like you've seen with the estimates and the Class C estimates we gave you for the GTR and the community facility. We gave you a box, but this space fits all of these spaces. That won't be the final design. But it gives you something in order to provide a decent cost order, and I think that's what we're gonna do next. Once we move forward with that and the council were to decide, let's move forward. Then you get the detailed design, really looking at the needs versus what we have and what that facility can afford us. And that full design will get done at that point in time. That comes back to council, gets approved for full design, we put that out for tender. And then it gets tendered and then we start looking at the project. So again, lots of work still to be done if council were to make this decision.
Comments? Councilor Knight.
Just put a request to a recorded vote, please.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move forward? If I could, just to pick up on a couple items, this has been a historical conversation. And that's why we are currently renting space that separates out our police services. Used to be on Downing now, and we outgrew that, and now we're on Erie. And so we've had talked about this in my 4 terms on council. And Councillor Henderson would probably say in her 5 terms on council. So this is historic. There is a reason why we're talking about it today. And we have a 1963 building, which is deficient in technology, accessibility, and size. And at some point, we have to make a decision. And here's an opportunity for us to move something. We're not making a decision tonight with regards to whether it's an absolute, but it's another step forward. But I think it follows the path of concern that we've had since taking out additional space on down the street a number of years ago. So having said that, I'll turn it over to the clerk for recorded vote.
For your worship, beginning with Councillor Niger, please state whether you are in support or opposed to the motion on the floor.
Sure.
Councillor Burback, support. Councillor Seven.
Opposed.
Councillor Bean.
Support.
Councillor McCabe.
Support.
Councillor Briscoe. Support. Councillor Wardova. Mayor Ritzman.
Support.
So through your worship, there are 7 members in support, 1 member opposed, and 2 members absent.
Thank you, and that passes, and let the record show that Councilor Hunter
Sorry, yes.
did not participate in the discussion. Yeah. So that was further, then we will move on to the next item. Thank you.
Your worship, 7.6 is a report on Bill 98, and our Director of Building and Planning Services is going to provide a brief overview.
Director Vendors, floor is yours. Thank you, police officers, chief and inspectors for being here this evening. Appreciate your support. Be safe out there. Director.
Thank you, your worship, from one engaging discussion to one on the planning acts, development charges and department dedication changes. The province is putting forth changes to the legislation that govern those 3 pieces. I've walked through my report along with Director Kruger about how those changes might impact the municipality. from a planning perspective, but also a future growth perspective in the DCs, and then the parkland dedication that we received through planning approvals and dedication. So I won't go into too much detail, Your Worship. I put forth a comprehensive report here, but if there's any questions, myself or my colleagues will be able to answer them and provide some clarity.
Questions, Councillor McCabe, go ahead, please.
Through the chair, it would appear that there's a lot of restrictions on what we can do as far as green standards. Would you say that this is essentially being taken away as a responsibility that local authorities can?
Yes, through Your Worship. So generally, yes. The planning regime that we have now is mostly one that encourages. We seek to consider, promote, encourage, incentivize, provide guidelines, those sorts of things. But when we start talking about mandating, that's where it gets difficult. The province, through the Building Code Act, has made recommended changes whereby municipalities would clearly be prohibited from mandating those basic components. Now, we can all reasonably understand that it's in the name of providing or reducing barriers to housing. It's shifting the focus from maybe climate and sustainability objectives to more housing and affordability. So I think that's what the province is looking to see there. But your comments, Councillor McGill, I generally agree with there. It's not to say that I disagree with promoting sustainability or private initiatives. Hopefully there's a time in the future where we as the province and municipalities can get that having those built into our consideration of applications and management.
Any other comments? Councillor Bristol, thank you.
Certainly support and thank you for the detailed report, breaking down what works and what doesn't. It's great policy analysis for us to build off of. I was just wondering if we had, I'm sure you do, to add in what our preferred language would be or what our preferred development church structures would be. Do we already have that worked out? Because I would love to see that here in our comments.
Thank you for your worship. So if council is generally in agreement, and particularly on the development charges piece, that's where what I've tried to reflect in the report is that a municipality like Stratford might not be able to afford to cut our DCs by 50 to 30 to 50%. So I apologize, Councillor Bristol, that I don't have drafted verbiage in that regard, but if the council is generally in agreement or wants to provide clarity with those comments, but I do apologize for not having those comments or those draft comments ready for council's consideration.
Yeah, just as well. Certainly I support if we move to that stage. We'd love to see, especially in these commenting processes, so many times we get comments, governments in our bill of governments vote what we don't like, but we forget to attach solutions that people can then really grab onto and support. That if we have concrete ones to put out, because then I think that's something as council we can then also translate into something that's circulated amongst other municipalities that may not know what to put forward. They just know that this doesn't work, but if we can be that champion, this is a more appropriate solution. I think that can garner a lot more support for small communities like ours if the structure just doesn't work for it. I know a lot of focus goes to the development charges, but the other areas that you outlined as well, I think it's timely that it comes today when we're looking at what are the gaps in housing, what are the shortages of supply. But I think this is looking to remove a lot of barriers for a supply issue that also doesn't necessarily serve what Stratford's needs are. That these are trying to remove barriers for a very specific type of home and a specific type of ownership model to probably meet a target that was stated publicly that's not going to do that. And that municipalities are paying that price to meet that target that does not represent what our needs are. And so I think as much certainly focus on development trades, but what you've highlighted the others are also very putting that.
Thank you, Councillor. So, Councillor Hodge.
Thank you, through the mayor. Through the development charges, any changes to those? Currently, the developers pay for the infrastructure in a subdivision. If we lower those, we put that burden on to the taxpayers. And I don't know that, I don't know if we've looked at how that impacts affordability. It would lower, development charges would lower the purchase price, but the tax burden would go up. And I don't know if,
Anecdotally, yeah, anecdotally, yes, that's sort of the concern we're seeing in these comments, is that shift, that cost moves over to the general tax base. So yeah, and it's not the infrastructure within, and then like we dealt with the subdivision, and it's subdivided, a developer will do the infrastructure within that planned subdivision. We're talking about the infrastructure and service needs outside of that development charges are levied for.
There's a privilege anything to add.
I think it's a clarification.
Councilor Kate, and then Councilor Burton.
Yeah, through the chair, picking up on what my colleagues have already said, for smaller municipalities, there's a gap between what regulations are coming down from the province and what is doable in smaller urban municipalities, where a reduction of 50% in development charges may have an enormous impact on what we can provide to our citizens as far as services. So I support the idea of trying to come up with a middle ground approach to submit to.
Thank you for the chair. Yeah, everybody's pretty much stolen my thunder, so I won't repeat a lot of it, but I do think the angle of the smaller municipalities is an important one to sort of highlight. You know, this may be a solution that works in bigger centers, but it really doesn't work for us. And I think those examples that you gave, that comparing development charges in different areas and the impact that it would have, it's really great to include. I'm curious about, is there a timing for submitting the comments, like how much time do you have?
Through your worship, it's later this week.
Okay, just do your best then.
I'll just, I'd like to add a comment, but I'll let the CAO go as well.
For the mayor, on the timing piece, there's certainly the timing piece that Adam referred to, the piece around development charges with this agreement between province and feds and what that might look like won't be until likely in the fall as to what that looks like, what that structure. So I think we're likely to be having more conversations through AMO and ourselves around what that might look like moving forward. But certainly Adam's correct, there's some headwinds on the bill this week.
And if I could just pick up that piece there, I know Eagle was on this, but also there's not many times where I defend the province, but I will in this one, where this was kind of taken from the feds on a Friday, given to the province on a Monday, saying, this is what we're thinking about doing. Can you move it forward? And same with what the CAO has presented, I think there's much more conversation that has to be done before we get to anything, but certainly providing our thoughts from the smaller municipality is worthy, but still the feds in the province have to come together. What that template even looks, how much money and how did they present a template that's fair to all. So if there's not, Councilor Burton.
I was gonna move the staff
Thank
recommendation.
you. So there is a motion on the floor, and it's been moved by, that's 7.6, and it's been moved by Councilor Burback, seconded by Councilor Bristol. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Most of any, that's unanimously carried. Next item, please.
Your worship, item 7.7 is the Stratford Bruce Peninsula Employment Service System Manager Consortium 2026 member update. And there is a staff recommendation that the report be received for information.
Moved by Councilor Hunter, thank you. Second by Councilor Nigel. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed to any, that's unanimous and carried.
Item 7.8 is an application for part lot control exemption, and there is a staff recommendation that council approve application for part lot control exemption PLC 03-26 to exempt lots 59, 60, 61, and 63 on registered plan 44M-96 from part lot control for an additional year through the passing of a bylaw to amend the part lot control exemption bylaw 63-2025. To create 8 separate parcels of land, each of which would contain a semi-detached dwelling unit.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor McCabe, seconded by Councilor Niger, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question, all in favor? Opposed to any, and that's unanimous and carried.
Item 7.9 is an appointment to the Seedco/Invest Stratford Board of Directors, and there is a staff recommendation that David Lambert, representing the small business sector, be appointed to the Seedco Board of Directors for a 3-year term to June 2029, with an option for an additional 2-year term or until a successor is appointed by council. And that section 2.9F of the appointments bylaw be further amended to make the appointment.
Thank you. Mover for that item. Councillor Hunter will move, seconded by Councillor Burback. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's unanimously carried.
Item 7.10 is a request for tender award, and there is a staff recommendation that the tender RFT 2026-02 for the 9 Fulton Street, Milverton Affordable Housing Construction Management Services Project be awarded to CGEMI Inc. at the cost noted, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into a contract agreement.
Thank you. Mover, moved by Councillor Niger, seconded by Councillor Bristol. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any, that's unanimously carried.
Item 7.11 is the downtown parking study request for proposal award, and there is a staff recommendation that the request for proposal RFP 2026-03 for the provision of consulting services for the downtown parking study be awarded to RJ Burnside Associates Limited at the cost noted. That the additional funding required be funded from the parking reserve and be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary contract agreement.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Burback, seconded by Councillor McCabe. Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Thanks, I just wanted to ask, if there's a possibility of doing this, internally with staff, and if so, what that would look like, it would be delayed, and if not, maybe you could explain the limitations within our current complement of staff.
Ms. Staple.
So through you, your worship, so at this time, it's the clerk's office who's leading the downtown parking study. We would have no capacity to undertake this, given that it's municipal election year. It's also just outside of our service scope. I would also turn to our Director of Infrastructure Services just to see what the impact would be, given that this wasn't included as part of their overall work plan.
Director Brinkman.
Through your worship, just going on a little further beyond that, the type of professional that facilitate these type of studies is extended beyond the expertise that we generally have in-house, so they have tools, resources that we don't normally. The analysis will be more in-depth, more robust than what we can provide internally. We don't have the equipment or tools to provide the numbers of data to do that, the data analytics required for this assessment, so if we were requested by council to look into it, definitely would get pushed back a further year. We don't have capacity this year to look into a parking study of this nature. And if that was the desire, then we look into providing some format or some way to provide some kind of justification, but it wouldn't be the same extent that.
Thank you. And I'll just remind council that this does include the GTR site, which is important in that study as well. Any other comments or questions? Site's been moved and seconded. I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's unanimous and carried.
Item 7.12 is the Queen Street Reconstruction Tender Award, and there was a staff recommendation that the tender T-2026-76 for the Queen Street Reconstruction Project be awarded to Heaven Construction Company Limited at the price noted, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary contract agreement.
Thank you, mover. Councillor Hunter will move, second by Councillor Burback. Discussion. None noted. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's unanimous and carried.
Item 7.3 is the TJ Dolan retaining wall replacement tender award, and there's a staff recommendation that the tender T-2026-05 for the TJ Dolan retaining wall replacement contract be awarded to Kaiswetter Excavating Inc. at the price noted, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary contract agreement.
Thank you. Mover for this item. Councillor McCabe will move, second by Councillor Burback. Any discussion? See none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? That's unanimous and carried.
Item 7.10 is nominations for the 2026 to 2028 Association of Municipalities of Ontario Board of Directors. If a member of council is interested in being nominated, a resolution adopted by council is required.
Any interest at this time? Seeing none, next item.
Item 715 is a proclamation request for the flying of the intersex inclusive pride flag and declaring Junior's Pride Month. As noted on the agenda, the first motion is that the correspondence from Stratford Perth Pride and Huron Perth Public Health in support of the Pride Month proclamation request be received.
Moved by Councilor Burback, seconded by Councilor Hunter. All in favor? Opposed to any? That's unanimous and carried.
And the next,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
through your worship, the next motion on the agenda is that Stratford City Council hereby proclaims June 2026 as Pride Month in the city of Stratford. And that Stratford City Council authorizes the flying of the intersex inclusive pride flag for the month of June 2026 as a visible show of support for the 2S LGBTQIA+ community.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor McCabe, seconded by Councilor Nigel. Any discussion? All question, all in favor? Debating, that's unanimous.
Item 716 is a proclamation regarding the Canadian Chinese Heritage Month, and the proclamation is noted on the agenda.
Moved by Councilor Burback, seconded by Councilor Wardolpha. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed to any, that's unanimous. Carried.
Item 8 is business for which previous notice has been given and there's none noted. Item 9 is reports of standing committees and there are no standing committee reports to be considered. Item 10 is notice of intent and there's none noted, so we'll move to item 11, reading of the bylaws. There are 12 bylaws listed for consideration as follows. Item 11.1 is to consider an appointment to the Invest Stratford Board of Directors. Item 11.2, award of tender for the Queen Street reconstruction project. Item 11.3 is to award the proposal for the downtown parking study. Item 11.4 is to award the tender for the TJ Dolan retaining wall placement contract. Item 11.5 is to amend the part lot control exemption bylaw for Ford Drive. Item 11.6 is to amend the traffic and parking bylaw for the Erie Street lot permits. Item 11.7 is to amend the fees and charges bylaw for the overnight parking permit. Item 11.8 is to amend the agreement with the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness for the Homelessness Reduction Innovation Fund. And 11.9 is to award the tender for the 9 Fulton Street Affordable Housing Construction Management Services contract. Item 11.10 is the zoning bylaw amendment application for 750 McCarthy Road West. And item 11.11 will be deferred. And then item 11.12 is the agreement with Shelter Review Services for operational support.
Thank you. Move to make these collectively. Moved by Councilor Bean, seconded by Councilor McCabe. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All in favor, that's unanimous. Carried. The mover for first and second. Moved by Councilor Nigel, seconded by Councilor Hunter. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All in favor, that's unanimous. Carried. And a mover for third and final. Moved by Councilor Burback, thank you. Seconded by Councilor Bristol. Any discussion? Not noted, all in favor? Most of any, that's unanimous. Carried.
Item 12 is the consent agenda. Are there any items listed on the consent agenda to be considered by council?
Also at this time, consent agenda. Noted.
Item 13 is new business. Are there any new business items?
Councilor 7.
Thank you. I would like to comment and address today's news release regarding the City of Stratford's charter challenge against the province of Ontario's strong mayor powers. First, I do agree that these powers are unnecessary and in many ways undemocratic, and at the very least should not be imposed on municipalities. However, I have two main points of concern regarding Council's decision to begin litigation of choice against the province of Ontario. One, the debate, discussion, and decision took place by choice in closed meetings hidden from the public. By the same council, which has seen members vote against hearing delegations and supported the idea of cutting the time residents are permitted to speak at meetings. Being heard at meetings and indeed hosting public meetings is more crucial to democracy than being rid of strong mayor powers and should take precedent over costly litigation. Which brings me to my second concern, cost. This is no doubt an important issue, not unlike other provincial legislation and shortcomings. If members of this council believe it is important enough to take the province support, there is nothing stopping individuals from doing so with private and personal money. But shutting residents out of the conversation and then committing undetermined amounts of Stratford taxpayer dollars to fund unnecessary litigation. While we know and have heard tonight that our residents are truly struggling, I do not support. So given that the decision has already been made in closed meeting, I want to put forward a motion that all costs associated with the charter challenge, including legal advice and staff time, are brought back to council, and that as part of the report, after the report comes, we look at setting a limit on the expenses for this support challenge.
So there is a motion put forward.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. A seconder for that motion. Councilor Rodolfo will second. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question on the motion that's on the floor. All in favor?
Sorry, could I just have it read back, the motion?
Certainly, yes, thank you.
So through your worship, it's my understanding that the motion on the floor, moved by Councillor Seven and seconded by Councillor Rodova, is that all costs associated with the charter challenge, including legal and staff time, be brought back to council in the session on an upset limit.
Sorry, that's my fault. I wasn't clear enough. So I think I would just like I'll leave out the upset limit, and then if this passes, when that comes back, then we're gonna have that discussion for sure.
Is that clear, Councilman?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Thank you for that clarification. I'll call Councilman.
Sorry, just one comment. I think this was properly done in camera because we were getting legal advice. And what we did was provide instructions to a solicitor. And there are good reasons for keeping it quiet because it protects our financial interest as a city. And I understand Councillor Seven's point, and it's a difficult one to be able to move forward with in an open session because it does tip our hand to provincial lawyers that can prevent challenges to our decision. So I'm in support of his motion because I have no issue with disclosing costs. I think that's appropriate. But it's just some of the comments I took objection with, that it implied a misconduct, I think, that I don't think was. So.
Further comments, Councilor Bristol.
Thank you, through the chair, through Councilor Hunter, that there's a reason for attorney client, we're looking for strategy, and not only would it jeopardize the proceedings that we're trying to do, any potential application that wasn't for the province during deliberations would also have been jeopardized from a financial or educational perspective as well. And I think in the second part of the comments, conflating the needs of our individuals presently with their democratic needs, and that it needs to be an either or. I don't think that that is an accurate representation of our duty as well as what's happening in this situation. Obviously, again, we need transparency in our costs, which Councilor Hunter noted and we all support, but to serve their needs, we're seeing more and more. We had a discussion today about having to create comments to maintain our powers to protect their needs. And this is an extension of that. So I don't think it's an either or choice here. It's very much an and discussion.
Oh, Councilor Berman.
Through the chair, yeah, just in general, the strong mayor powers, the reason that it's problematic for democracy is that citizens no longer have the same representation at council. So the council votes and voices are not as powerful as they were. And I think that is a great service to our citizens, both in Stratford and all over the province. So I think it's important to move this forward, and I don't think disclosing costs is.
Yeah, through the chair, certainly we're seeing news towards autocratic leadership throughout the Western world at this particular moment. I see this no differently than I see that. And also, if you look at what is happening with regional chairs being appointed in the province. This is basically more control over decisions being made by central authority. And democracy means standing up at certain points, and I submit that is what we are doing.
Thank you. Councilor Sapp.
Just to reiterate that I don't disagree with the comments about strong mayor powers, but as we had earlier discussion tonight, I think it was Bill 98 and countless other items of legislation which have taken away the power of council over certainly my term in the last 7 years. So there were many things along the road that we could have decided to litigate, and I think an issue for me, as I mentioned, is the cost, and it's not a necessary one. There are other ways to fund this, and it shouldn't be with tax dollars.
Other comments? Councilor Wardell.
Thank you. As we discussed last time, the commission has legally talked last night, if you remember, and then, us from the council that were elected with the public, and we have all of us have a voice for this community. As this moment, we have a power, a really voice. That my question is, I don't need any power because we do a lot of things for our community, and we support you, but you have to bring us. That's why. And then we just came with also a conference, most of the guest speaker against for government. Why he decided this, the middle power, right? Most of municipalities, they already destroyed for this situation. But we are lucky we don't need this power, we have more way strong the community and the legal of the things, we are lucky working with you, the election coming soon. And I don't want the second election, mayor coming along, he's the top, but at this moment, we don't need any mayor power, but this is my voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sapp.
Thank you. I wanted to pick up on Councilor Hunter's comment, and I certainly am not implying misconduct by council in closed session when it was inappropriate, but the municipal act does allow for that you may go into closed session for some things, and I'm of the opinion that this is something that should have been in open session, and I'm just being clear that I'm not implying that it was wrongfully done in closed session, but if it were up to me, this would have been done completely in open session, and that's why I was commenting on that.
Other comments or phone question? Seeing none, just to pick up on Councilor Rodolfo's comments, as you know, and I've stated this openly many times, that I strongly value that relationship building and collaboration with council, with staff, with our public, with our residents, and to that end, there hasn't been an issue with regards to strong air powers used by myself, council, and the CAO have not been impacted by strong air powers. They have retained the power and responsibilities that I believe is yours, and that's how we've operated from May the 3rd of, I can't remember what date it was, Connor back there, where you informed me that I was getting strong air powers, but that hasn't impacted us in this council chamber, and I value that and continue to promote the idea of democracy through strong relationships and collaboration. So there is a motion on the floor. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed to any? That is carried. Next item.
So, the new business, Councilor McCann was awesome, in 2027, where
Can you ask the question to the chair?
So we should
Council, yes, the question should come here and then we'll try to continue.
So we should.
Yes.
The workshop. And then we have a question, we just nominated for 2027 also, right? And then, Councilor Ray, if you think that's the missing piece.
Councilor.
I think that I would just say that I was awesome, conference that we will be holding in 2027 with Councilor Gota, Director McElroy and Councilor Burback, having great discussions on some of these issues, and we look forward to. We introduced the mayor's video. And we're very excited to see the conference come here in 2027.
Yeah, and thank you for that work, and it's a beautiful city to explore and hope, so thank you, Councilor.
You just continue, your voice, very good, and everybody happy, and then everybody excited to come Stratford. Well, to the ladies, we can tell everyone, please, will give you opportunity to host me in the year, to host me in this conference, and really, lot of preparation, I think so, we will carry points.
Thank you. Councilor. Other comments under new business? I have a couple of mine put through this work. First, I'd like to acknowledge the great work and the great kickoff by Darcy Drummond and Atlanta Bowles for community service of Asian Heritage Month. They kicked off last Friday, I believe it was. Just amazing. We have a full month of activities that will carry us right through to May 30th. And then also I would want to congratulate and acknowledge the work of our fire department. We just received our emergency management compliance for 2025, and well done to be recognized by the province that we are in good standing with regards to our emergency management. So congratulations. Yes, thank you. Okay, next item.
There is item 14 is adjournment to standing committees, and there is a motion that the council meeting adjourns to convene the standing committees as follows: the infrastructure, transportation, and safety committee, and then to reconvene into council.
Mover for that item, moved by Councilor Seven, seconded by Councilor Hunter. All in favor? That's unanimous. Carry. Well, over. Chair Burr. Thanks.
Just before I come to meeting to order, we're gonna do like 5-minute.
Let's get it done, we're pretty tight. Yeah. You know.
I almost see what cheese. Those good. You put it in the chair now.
Transportation and Safety Committee, items for disclosure, community interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Item 3 are subcommittee minutes. Item 4, delegations, we have time to get. Item 5 is the report of the manager of environmental services. 5.1 is our waste treatment plant digester roof and mixing system replacement update. Which we have a recommendation, staff recommendation that the report titled WC digester roof and mixing system replacement recommendation be received for. Councilor Hunter will move, Councilor Nigel will second. Questions or comments? Report. Seeing none, all in favor? Item 5.2 is the 2025 Stratford Water Pollution Control Plant Annual Report. And again, we have a staff recommendation that the report be received. Councilor Bristol will move, Councilor Reed will second. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 6 is a report of the Director of Emergency Services, the Fire Chief. 6.1 is a new medical dispatching system, and again, we have a subcommittee and a staff recommendation that council support the change. Stratford Fire Department medical responses to cover purple, red, and selected other medical responses, and that staff be directed to negotiate a new tiered response agreement between the Stratford Fire Department and Perth County EMS. Councilor Reed will second. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Item 7 is with the committee. We have 7.1, which is the permanent update, and 7.2 we have attached advisory committee and outside. Item 8 is under. Councilor Niger will move. Councilor Niger will second. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Burback. Dan Clerk, we can meet.
For your workshop, returning to your regular council agenda, item 15 is adjournment to closed session. And there is a motion that the council meeting move into closed session to consider a following matter. 3.1, confidential report of the chief administrative officer with respect to the proposed acquisition of 10 and 52 Ray Boulevard, transaction risk assessment, CN-26-15. That is under the following exemption of the municipal act, proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land by the municipality or local board. Position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality.
Thank you. Mover to go into go slash. Councilor Lee will move, second by Councilor Rodolphe, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Most of any, that's unanimous, same carry. So we will wait. Oh, sure. It's so. We're ready to go. Thank you.
Your worship, returning back to your regular council agenda, item 16 is council reconvene, item 16.1. Are there any declarations of community interest made at standing committees or the closed session to be restated at this open portion?
None noted.
Item 16.2 is report of the in-camera session. So as noted, an in-camera session was held to consider the confidential report of the chief administrative officer with respect to the proposed acquisition of 10 and 52 Red Boulevard, transaction risk assessment for the exemptions noted earlier. At the in-camera session, direction was given to our chief administrative officer to negotiate a portion of this matter. Moving to 16.3, reading of the bylaws. There is one bylaw listed, which is a confirmatory bylaw, requires first and second reading and third and final reading.
Thank you. A mover for first and second. Moved by Councillor Bean, second by Councillor Burback. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, any, that's unanimously carried. And a mover for third and final. Councillor Seven will move, seconded by Councillor Nigel. Any discussion? Not noted, all in favor? Opposed, any, that's unanimously carried. And the last item to be entertained here tonight, a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Nigel, second by Councillor Burback. All in favor? Most of any, that's unanimously carried, and I thank council staff and media. Thank you very much.